IB Nation, good morning, good afternoon, actually, here on a Monday morning, which means we are doing our recruiting hour here at irishbreakdown.com. Want to thank everybody so much for the complete support of this show. I already have in the chat, before we started the show, I love you guys because you all have a great conversation out there. We already had Colin Smith say, Sean and Ryan are a lethal combo. Always look forward to Monday recruiting talk. Coleman, I always look forward to it as well. I will have someone joining me in a little bit here, maybe Sean, maybe Brian Driscoll. Not 100% sure, but of course, I am Ryan Roberts, the director of scouting here at irishbreakdown.com. Have an exciting show for you all today. Before I kind of go through a little bit of the rundown, if you could like this video, you could hit the share button, you could hit the notification bell, because we'll be having a lot of shows here in the near future. We'll have the Upon Further Review tonight at 8 o'clock. We'll have at 6 o'clock IB Nation Sports Talk with Sean Stiers and Vince D'Addario. So have three shows for you all today. So it's going to be really exciting times. I know there's a lot of questions that are already rocking and rolling. So make sure to get those in, because the last segment of the day, we'll be doing a mailbag. But before we get there, all right, have a couple really fun things I want to talk about today on this recruiting hour. First and foremost, I teased it on the board. You should go to boards.irishbreakdown.com if you aren't signed up there. I teased it on the board about last week, around this time, maybe it might have been on Wednesday, actually, of last week, that I had a couple really cool interviews coming to you all here very soon. So one that you've already seen, and it'll be up as a solo show, I believe, on the YouTube channel here pretty soon, but it was a one-on-one interview with Jeremiyah Love, who at that point was not publicly committed to Notre Dame, but I had the chance to sit down one-on-one with Jeremiyah for about a 15-minute interview. And I'll say this, man, I really enjoyed it. I think everybody out there that listened to the interview on our show on Saturday for the commitment with Jeremiyah, think that we got a pretty positive, feedback as far as the caliber of person he is. Obviously, the caliber of player he is without mentioning, right? So I think that you all enjoyed that one. And I have another interview for you today that we're going to show in just a second. And then we're going to get into the weeds of this past recruiting weekend, right? Jeremiyah Love commitment had a lot of great players on campus, committed and uncommitted alike. Brandon Hillman, 2023 athlete out of Churchland in Virginia, was on campus. Ryan Wingo, star 2024 wide receiver out of St. Louis University, was on campus as well. There was a lot of, Drake Bowen, CJ Carr was on campus. A lot of great recruits that were on campus this past weekend for the Stanford visit. But I want to start you out with this interview. It's a fun interview. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's pre-recorded, so I'll be able to answer anything in the chat if you guys have any follow-up questions, or if you just want to chat it up after this one. So I had the privilege of being joined on the show last week, pre-recorded show. Had the chance to get Shonda Gray on, who is the mother of Christian Gray. And I had a great conversation with her. If you all have seen the interviews I've done in the past, I had Don Schuler on, who is, of course, the father of Adon Schuler, had on before Glenn James, the father of Braylon James in the 2023 class. Also had a sit-down interview in the past with Debbie Otting, the mother of Joe Otting, the 2023 offensive lineman out of the state of Kansas. So I had a chance to sit down with Shonda Gray, who, people that don't follow recruiting a ton, Christian Gray is a 2023 cornerback commit out of the St. Louis area as well. He's out of Dismissed Jesuit. He's a good friend with Jeremiyah Love. They are really now trying to push Notre Dame to continue to get into St. Louis. So we're going to talk to Shonda, or I talked to Shonda, about a little bit of the recruiting background, what Christian's been up to lately, how excited they are to kick off the Notre Dame career. So want to kick us off today with that wonderful interview with Shonda Gray. So hope you all enjoy it so much. I know I personally really did enjoy all the commentary that she provided with me, and it was a fun conversation. So without further ado, Shonda Gray, the mother of 2023 cornerback commit, Christian Gray, joined the show here. And if you all could just throw in the chat when it starts, if you can hear the video all right, would really appreciate it to just kind of get that background. All right. So without further ado, Shonda Gray, mother of 2023 cornerback commit, Christian Gray, out of DeSmet Jesuit in St. Louis, Missouri. Welcome, everyone, to the Irish Breakdown podcast. It's a little recruiting edition for you all. I know on the message board, on the YouTube channel, I know you all really like to hear when we kind of go inside and behind the scenes to Notre Dame recruiting, bringing you a different perspective, which is always a lot of fun. So as everyone knows on irishbreakdown.com, we have been a huge fan of Christian Gray, the 2023 cornerback out of DeSmet Jesuit in St. Louis, Missouri, leading what seems to be a dynamic group of St. Louis players over the next couple of years that may be coming to Notre Dame. And I have with me someone that I think is going to give us a really interesting and unique perspective. We've had in the past Glenn James on to talk about a little bit of Braylon James's recruitments, the 2023 wide receiver, 2023 safety commit, Adon Schuler. His father came on, Don Schuler, as well as Debbie Adon, the mother of 2023 offensive lineman Joe Adon. So I want to bring on another mother's perspective here today. So I have Shonda Gray, who is the mother of Christian Gray, like I said, out of St. Louis, Missouri. Shonda, I know we've had a little bit of technical issues over the last couple of days, but thank you so much for all of your flexibility, and welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me. No problem.
People that don't know behind the scenes, we tried the interview yesterday. There were some technical issues. StreamYard is killing me, all that good stuff. 2022 and technology is still a hassle all the time. But Shonda, I guess a good place to start here, something that I asked you yesterday that's pretty similar, is I know that you have an education background. So you are a person that I know, like myself, I was once an educator that takes those things very seriously. The opportunities at the next level, setting yourself up for the future. So can you just talk about a little bit of your perspective, a little bit of your background in education, and maybe setting the table for why education was just such a big thing for your family, for Christian, for everyone to kind of find the best fit here?
Yes. So I've been an educator now for 23 years. Been a classroom teacher, building administrator, district administrator, state administrator just as well. So it's very important to me about being prepared for college, going to college, and also being career prepared. So after you complete, college, what are you going to do after that? And so that's not a new conversation in our house. So Christian's been raised that way. His foundation been set around, going to college, and the expectation, even for his household, for his goals, for his future, for his, when he decides to get married and have a family. So we look at the long haul, like how will this impact, the rest of your life? And so, so as a family, our education foundation is very important. And that's it. So that's been established. College planning is not new to Christian. Christian's been aware. Christian was attending college fairs with me for work. So he's used to talking to admissions reps and learning about graduation rates and all those different things. And so those are things that I had to remind Christian of doing this recruiting process. The recruiting process was the additional piece that we had to learn about. Well, I had to learn about.
Sure.
And so, but education has been important to us that's
well,
just...
Shonda, let me ask you, because obviously you've been a great support to Christian. I know your whole family has, kind of helping to guide him. But has there been any moments where you've kind of maybe just stepped back for a second and been like, wow, he's handling this really well, like surprisingly well? Because, he's still a young kid, right? Obviously making a life-changing decision. college is a huge, huge decision. I know you've been a guiding light. I know you've been a support. But just how impressed have you been with Christian, just kind of maybe the resources that he's been able to use, the maybe wherewithal to understand, like, hey, this is ultimately my decision and I need to, make the best of it as I can.
Yeah. So it got to a point where it was just a clear understanding that, letting Christian know, like, hey, you have to make this decision at the end of the day. I'm not going to be there. I don't have to be there. You have to attend classes. You have to, work with your coaches. And we are a big relationship family. Like, we are big on about developing and maintaining relationships. And so that was one of the things, too, that was an added piece. But watching Christian actually in this, wow. How can I don't know where to start. Okay, so first of all, it was I was nervous in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and especially like when people wanted to talk to him, so reporters, people calling, and so that I had to sit in with him every time. Like at first, like, what are you saying? What questions are you answering? And how is he handling that, right? And so I don't think people really know, like, Christians recruiting, like, it was just all of a sudden, like, it was this thing that just happened after we started going to those camps, and it changed our whole plan. It changed our whole everything. And so as I watched Christian over the time, and Christian's young for his age, Christian's 17, like, he's a late 17-year-old too. And so I listened to him. They'll talk to, you guys talk to reporters and talk to the coaches. So when we started going in and he's talking to coaches, I, as a mom, but also as an educator, I was like, whoa, like, you're prepared. Like, even your responses as I'm hearing and listening to what he's saying to the coaches. And I was like, okay, long as we have these things established, that this is what we're looking for in schools. And so not the names of the school. This is great. It's fascinating, the names, but this is what we're looking for. And so when we sat down as a family and decided, based on these things, not the school, but based on, making sure that your faith, like, you have access to, to just the word of God, not the school, so to say, but just having access to that presence is available to you. But the academic and the other thing we were looking at, I think Christian was looking at brotherhood, looking at team. And so once I knew that he kind of got that understanding, it was good. The whole thing, though, was to make sure, about him remaining humble, and just seeing things for what they are. Looking past the lights, the shiny lights, I got an offer from here, and now, okay, so what's the realistic Christian? Where would you really like to go? And so once we got that understanding in our household, that also too is Christian's ultimate decision, but it's also a family decision. It's how you cultivate it and everything. Like, okay, it's a family decision, but it's also your decision. And that's it. When we checked off those boxes of what we were looking for as a family, and then what Christian was looking for as a young man, that, I was really impressed with him. As time went on, I can't even explain it. I was just saying this to him the other day, I'm really proud of him, because even with the high school, that he's been through 3 different coaches, 3 different head coaches, 4 different DB coaches, and 4 defensive coordinators. And so I am impressed. Like, I'm really proud of him. And so once I felt like he was ready to handle it, like I said, once we established what we were looking for him, as a family, but also what he was looking for as a young man, it was good to go. I trusted his decision.
I love it. I love it. And again, I feel like, again, guiding light, support, it's been so important. I know, because you've gone through this before, right? You have a daughter that's at Ohio State, if I remember correctly, when we were talking about yesterday. So
yeah, she is at Ohio State. This is her 2nd year. And going through the process of just taking her to colleges and figuring out what's the best fit for her. She was not trying to pursue a I guess a athletic scholarship, but there are academic scholarships. So I am I can't even explain to people, like, as a parent, like, these are some of the goals that you want to see, not just your kids going to school, but they are doing pretty well. And she's doing very well. But not the first time, but first time with recruiting.
Yeah.
this was new to me.
Well, you should be very proud having a son that is going to go to Notre Dame and having a daughter that's already at Ohio State. Those are huge accomplishments, obviously, two great schools. So let me ask you this. You said, you had to kind of learn the recruiting process and all that good stuff. I'm kind of curious about Christian's background, because you said it kind of like recruiting just kind of came up, right? It's like, oh, okay, this is kind of a thing after going to the camps. And I know especially a couple of years ago, I think he went to an Ohio State camp and he ran in like the 4.4s at 6'1", and it's just like, okay, that's legit, right? So let me hear a little bit about maybe Christian's athletic background. Was he always this kind of guy and just maybe a late bloomer? Was it something that's just come up pretty quickly where he had a great growth spurt? Like, I'm just curious about how quickly maybe you had like an inkling of like, hey, he might be something on the football field. He might be pretty good.
Well, I didn't get that until later. I can tell you that for sure. But he's always been athletic, though. But he was a kid that played baseball. He grew up playing baseball and basketball. He didn't start playing football until like fifth or sixth grade. And he wanted to do that so he could hang out with his friends. Yes. And then by seventh grade, when we decided that my daughter played volleyball too. So by the time they got to middle school, it's like, okay, you have to decide, like pick a sport, pick an activity that you want to focus on, because, it's only one of me. And I have to figure out, my ex-husband passed when Christian was 4, my daughter was 6. So it's been us all this time. Yep. So by the time middle school came, I was like, hey, you have to pick one or the other. And he decided football. So with that, at the time, Christian in 7th and 8th grade, Christian attended a homeschool program. So my parents were retired, so they kind of helped a little bit. But Christian went to school Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Tuesday and Thursdays was like, his training days. So he chose football. He decided to do 7-on-7. And that's where it started. So he began to be trained as a DB wide receiver in 7-on-7, and he got a chance to go play in Atlanta Falcons Stadium in one of the tournaments. And I think that's where it shifted. It shifted for him. Like, I can do this. This is what I want to do. I want to go to the NFL. So as a mom, but also as an educator, right? Like I tell kids, you can't go to school for football. You can't go to school for basketball. So I was like, by this time, we already knew he wanted to major in, he wanted to design hospital equipment by this time. Wow. He's like, I want to design hospital equipment. So we established that part. Like, you have to major in something. You can't major in football, right? But we got to the clarity of like, this is what it's about. And so I saw my kid grow in the classroom, like the structure. So when he was doing his homeschool program, he didn't have PE. He only had 5 classes, and they were strictly academic classes: math, science, English, social studies, and like a foreign language. And so the training became the PE part for him. So when he went to training on Tuesdays and Thursday, but by 8th grade, his work ethic it changed significantly, like in the classroom, on the field, like it made me a better person with work ethic, because his work ethic was so just unreal. Like, to see it at 8th grade, and then he kept on going, and he kept going, and he put time aside, to make sure he trained, got a speed trainer. We did all of those things. And then he went to the first camp we went to was the Under Armour camp that was in Ohio. And that's actually when my daughter saw Ohio State campus. But we went to that, like, I don't know if it's June or July 2020. And he went, and he was like the youngest, and he received the MVP award. Wow. And no one knew who he was. No one knew where this kid came from. He was like 15 years old at the time. He had just turned 15. His birthday, May 26th. He just turned 15. And it was shocking. So after that, the next year, we end up going to the Ohio State camp. He got invited to the camp, and we were real specific about the camps. We had a plan. We had a schedule of what camps we were going to, and went to Ohio State. I'll never forget, I was sitting there in the indoor field, and I was working. I wasn't even paying attention, and he was going from, they did the 40, and then they had him run it again. And by this time, I saw it was Coach Coombs there, with some other coaches there, and then Coach Day was standing there. And I was like, what happened? And then my mom was with me, and she was like, they keep making them run. So he ran it. He ran it a few times. And so yeah, next thing I know, they went out and they started doing the 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 DB drills and all those things. And then he came back in. He was doing one-on-ones, and we got called into Coach Day's office. They After that, and they offered him, and it was just like, what just happened? What really just happened? They gave us the card, and I was like, wow, what just happened? We were just at all. And so after that, yeah, we went on, and it changed like our whole schedule. So we came to the Notre Dame invasion camp, I believe.
Yes.
And he did it again. And by that time I was like, okay, this is real.
It's
Like,
the thing. Yeah.
yeah, it's a thing. So yeah, so we were very specific though. If anyone ever looked at his recruitment, he was very intentional about where he went, what schools he was going to. And it wasn't a question though in the end, though. I think what happened when he got all those offers start coming in, and as a kid, you like overwhelmed, and then I was overwhelmed, but watching him, just like, okay, you have some idea where you want to go anyway.
Right.
Just, and then there were some new places that came in, and I wanted to make sure he got to that campus. But yeah, it changed. Like, it changed in 1 week, in 2 weeks. It just became overwhelming. And what I do love about my son, what he did, he ended up coming in with me to make sure that, he was sharing the information, because sometimes we don't get the information as parents. Like,
Sure.
you get messages in your DM, you get, I didn't know what any of that was at that time. So I got on, Twitter. And I started following my son on all the social media platforms that he was connected to, and trying to see what are these schools. So I started following the coaches that were following him. So then I can kind of, see, the background of the coaches, and then what people were saying about some of those coaches. And so, yeah, I had to learn a lot within that short period of time. But Christian did really good. He did really, really well.
Yeah, no, I know it probably got overwhelming at times with everyone, because I mean, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, when we first tried doing this. It's like, I mean, Christian's getting offers from Ohio State, Notre Dame, pretty relatively in the same area of the country, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But then he's going to get USC, LSU, and Alabama, all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's been wild. So I guess ultimately, Shonda, just from your perspective, and I know, Christian's already kind of laid out his part of the story, but I guess my over-encompassing question is, why Notre Dame? Why did it end up being Christian's favorite school, the place that made most sense to him? What was the family's perspective on making the decision? Like, just trying to pinpoint of why ultimately Notre Dame was the best fit for him.
So I would have thought it was just simple, right? You have the faith, you have the academic. And it's a great school. It's just amazing opportunity too for him, right? So I would have thought, but it wasn't. What I can actually tell you, when we came there initially, it wasn't like the first choice, but we knew it was something. Like, Coach Freeman, which was the DC at the time, and Coach Mickens, great, like, just amazing coaches. And I come from education, so I'm all about data and understanding. And the my first comment to those two and to Coach Mickens was basically like, you guys are not going to stay here. And it was a positive thing. But I'm watching like the games. I'm watching the defense last year. I'm watching you guys shut people out. Like, I'm watching, and then I know you came from Cincinnati, so I'm watching that too, right? And I'm watching these people that you coach. Like, you guys might have a great opportunity to go do something bigger. And I don't know where we stand with that. I'll never forget that we had that conversation with Coach Meekins. And he asked if you have any questions. I had 10 questions. And I want to say this because Coach Steeples actually helped us in this process in the beginning. He was walking with us. And I had 10 questions that he gave us to ask schools while we were out. And Notre Dame was the first school I asked all 10 questions to.
Wow.
And they were, the last two were really like, how long you guys going to be here? And I remember Coach Mickens' response, and I just smiled, and I was like, you guys are some great coaches. Like, I just don't, like, Mickens, you coach Sauce Gardner. Like, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at, you guys are gap closers. Like, I'm seeing, like, what you did for Cincinnati, and then you at least see Cincinnati last year. And I'm like, yeah. So like I said, just understanding data and watching those things. And so then after that, the LSU offer comes in, and it threw a wrench in everything. But Ohio State was still there until my daughter told him, like, go where it's best for you. Don't come here just because I'm here. Like, go where, you can be great. Like, you can be great here, and I want you here. That's what my daughter told him. She said, I want you here with me, but like, just go where it's best for you. So I think after we start releasing him of a lot of those things of what our family, those more emotional ties, it was good to kind of see. But as we went to every school, that's where I really let Christian decide. Like, you got to decide if it's USC, Ohio State, LSU, wherever. And actually Kentucky was in there for a minute too, because it was like it's close to home too. But I tried to throw all of that out the window so he can go where he thought was the best place for him. And if it was USC, it was going to be USC. And so step back as a parent. Christian, he always said, we walked down the tunnel, and I don't know, I just started crying. Tears just came down my eyes, and I was like, I can't let him see I'm crying because I want him to make a decision. Like, I know this is the place for him, but he has to decide. And then it really kind of like when Coach Freeman got the head coach job, it kind of like, okay, well, he's not going anywhere. So then like our questions, some of those things start getting answered a little bit, that we got clarity. So like during the recruiting time, actually when all the coaching changes was happening, that's when we shut everything down. We had talked to Coach Reed, like we just shut it down. Like, okay, Christian, let's just watch the movement of everything and what happens. And so then now it's about culture and climate of each school. I love the culture and climate at Notre Dame, but Christian has to love the culture and climate at Notre Dame too. And so as time went on, and I joke about this, we all joke about this because we were listening to you guys too, like, he's here for the 7th time. He's coming for the 7th time. But we were supposed to come for the blue and gold game, and he had a 7-on-7 tournament, but we did a pop-up visit. It was like, okay, listen, we're not going to go while everybody's there. We need to go where you can actually just have your own moment on the campus. It wasn't even just talking to the coaches. It was just his moment of embracing the campus to see, if it's a good fit. And yeah, we did that. And I would have thought like by then it was just like, okay, he knows. He still didn't. He was struggling with LSU and Notre Dame. And by this time I really stepped out of it and was like, okay, just decide. But it was like, I knew, my daughter knew, my mom knew, like, where he was supposed to be. Even people in our church knew, like, just knew, like, it's a place for him where he can be who he is and embrace who he is. His love for Christ. He has a serious love for Christ. He's a compassionate kid. But he's also, I know you mentioned to me yesterday about him having some swag. I was like, yeah, that's, but he's a fun kid. He's just who he is. And so, step back and let him decide. And it came out. And he actually committed on his official visit. Like, he went in, we had no idea what was happening. As a family, we didn't know. My brother was in town for the official visit too. He lives in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, but he was there his first time visiting Notre Dame. And yeah, we get in, and all of a sudden Christian just he's talking to Coach Freeman. No one else was in there but our family and Coach Freeman, and he just let it out. And when I say he let it out, it wasn't just the fact that I'm committing here. It was the why. It was, I've been knowing for a while, but I was fighting against it type thing. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing to hear as a parent, like, for him to come to the understanding that I belong here. Yeah. And that's what happened. And then the other thing was, my dad was a big part of Christian's life. My dad passed away in 2020. Well, before my dad passed away, like that February, my dad passed in April, but that February, we just remembered, like, my dad talking to Christian. He said, hey, they were talking about colleges and where to go to school. And my dad mentioned Notre Dame and said, hey, you should go to Notre Dame, because at least I can watch you on TV every weekend. And we never came back to that until later, that my dad said that to Christian. And yeah, so it was all of a sudden, everything came full circle. Like, this is where he's supposed to be. And he had that moment in Coach Freeman's office where he's like, I'm all in. I'm done.
Love it.
This is what I'm doing.
Well, let me ask you the last question for you. And again, I really appreciate the time. This is awesome stuff. So let me ask you, since the commitment has happened now, from your perspective, maybe a little bit from Christian's, I have to assume that it's been like a nice relief, as in like, hey, he can be a kid now for a little bit, right? Enjoy senior year, do all that type of stuff. I'm sure there's been schools that have continued to try to reach out and be in his ear, all that good stuff. But what has just been the atmosphere for you guys since the commitment? Because, I mean, everything I've seen, because I follow Christian on Twitter, obviously, and he's very active, and he just seems like he is locked in. So I just want to hear how it's been since the commitment happens.
He is totally locked in, and I'm watching him just like you're watching him on Twitter. I think for me, when I knew he was locked in, he got a offer letter from Alabama. And the same day he got that offer letter was the day when I knew he was locked in, was when he did the Bon Jovi video on Twitter. Because that's the same day he received that offer letter. And I was like, he's all in. Like, nothing you can send to him can say to him that he's sold, like he's all in. And that was for me. I knew it before then, but I guess to him, to the people, and to other people, he was just like, listen, nobody's listening to me. I am locked in. I'm all in. And he did that video. And that I could not stop. I could not stop laughing. I could not. And I was like, I have to let you be who you are. And this is who you are. And he's a fun kid, though. Like, he really is a fun kid. He's like that cool kid, smart kid, but the swag, like, I don't know, this kid that I'm seeing, I am very proud of. Like, I love him just being able to be who he is. And yeah, so you don't see me like correcting him a whole lot anymore. Like, I would correct him, like, you can't post that, take that down, you can't have that. But now I'm like, kid, this is just who you are. And like I said, he loves the Lord. He loves football. Oh my God, he loves the game of football. And I think the Notre Dame fans just like have made him like, he is this whole nother kid. Like, he's embraced it. And I saw him helping with recruitment. Like, that's when I knew, like, okay, you're good. I don't have to worry about you receiving all these other calls, these messages. Like, you're all in. So
I love it. I love it. So I'm so glad that everything's been going well since the decision. Like I said, Shonda, I'm really happy that now Christian can kind of just be a kid for a few months until the college journey officially starts. I want to thank you so much. This was fantastic. I could have kept you for like an hour, but I want to be cognizant of your time. Again, joined by Shonda Gray, the mother of Christian Gray, star 2023 cornerback commit to the University of Notre Dame. Shonda, best of luck to you and your family. Thank you again so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right, well, there you have it. That is Shonda Gray, the mother of 2023 cornerback Christian Gray out of the Smet Jesuit in St. Louis, Missouri. I have now here with me. He's not here to start the show, but he is here now. Mr. Sean Davis, of course, recruiting analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. Sean, I want to start this conversation off, man, because I just kind of want to, there's a lot of, this is the fun time for me, right? Because we did the backstory on how Christian Gray ended up at Notre Dame. You did a tremendous job on that particular recruitment. You developed a nice relationship, I know, with him. So we know a lot of the backstory, and LSU was in the conversation, of course, Ohio State, USC. Like, there were a lot of schools, and I mean, I knew that Alabama had kind of come in late there, but I didn't know that it was like just kind of tossing it to the side, which is pretty bizarre, man. But just to kind of recap this a little bit, I mean, a lot of great notes there. But, Sean, I know that you've been able to, like I said, get to know Christian. So any thoughts that you just have, following that interview? Again, I just really want to appreciate Shonda so much for taking the time, Sean. And there's actually one chat that I wanted to pull up before I let you give your thoughts, was that she used the word gap closer in her conversation, right? She talked about Coach Freeman, Coach Mickens, or gap closers to her. Well, this was a nice comment from Irishman, the Liddy's big house hater. He said this mom is a gap closing mom. She knows her football. And I agree completely, Irishman. I'll say this before I let Sean kick us off here with the deeper conversation. Shonda is a wonderful lady. She is raising Christian by herself, raising another mother by herself, and educator, has been in the education field for 23 years. Just a wonderful woman, man, if I'm being completely honest. And you could see why Christian is so well-grounded and so mature for his age and made a really calculated decision. But, Sean, any takeaways from them, or just, conversations that you've had with Christian in the past? I know you got to know him, obviously.
What you saw in the interview was just an example of, just spending time and talking to each member of the family, understanding the importance of a young man losing his father at a young age, having his grandfather there, and then to lose his grandfather, who was so vitally important to him growing as a man after he lost his dad, and just how strong they are in their faith, and they stuck to that, and they believed that through that faith, they would find the right answer. But then, for his mom to take the process as serious as she took the process, having the 10 questions, asking and being realistic with Coach Freeman and Coach Mickens, like, you guys are too good. You're not going to be here for the full 4 years that my son is going to be here. Like, who has that type of thought process and goes that far down the line? But those are great questions when it comes to the development, not as a football player singularly, but as a young man as well, because those are two people that her, Christian, and the rest of the family were very impressed with when he was just the DC and, defensive backs coach. And, just going through the process, the ups and downs. We knew about the pull from Coach Steeples down there at LSU, someone that had groomed him and been with him through his career as a football player and a young man. And it was a tug and pull. But the one thing I can point out that kind of highlights the back and forth between Christian and his mom that was there. I remember being on the phone with him right after his visit in April. And we're sitting there, and it's a Sunday night, and we're talking. And actually, our conversation was about church earlier that day.
Okay.
Like, what happened at church? And then I talked about what happened at my church. And that was our conversation. And we're going back and forth. We're not even talking recruiting. And so I was like, yo, I know you're going back and forth, but are you ready to make a decision? And he says, yeah, I'm ready to set my decision date. And I said, okay. And then his mother chimes in, which goes back to her following him on social media. She's like ear hawking our conversation, right? And just unsolicited, she comes in like, you should do it on May the 15th. And I'm like, what? And then he's like, no, I want to do it on July the 4th. Well, no one's going to be able to come to it because they'll be with their families. No, they won't. They'll still come. Like, and this conversation is going back and forth. And this is when we found out about the July the 4th date. that we eventually put up before anybody else got the news. And just that relationship and going back and forth. And it was a difficult process because of the process.
Yeah.
But it was a process that they enjoyed as a family. And that was really cool to see like a full family involvement and investment in the process with the young man, ultimately leaving the decision up to him. But that moment for me in his recruiting kind of like encapsulates some of the things she pointed out. That phone call on that Sunday night, how important that faith was. The fact we're not even talking recruiting, we're talking faith on the recruiting call. And then we eventually got to a setting of the date and eventually where he stood with Notre Dame. And coming away from that conversation, that's when I told Brian, oh, this kid, he's coming to Notre Dame. Like, he still has a decision to make. There's going to be some back and forth, but eventually he's going to come to Notre Dame. So, yeah, I think that phone call from me in early May, right after he came in for his April visit, was all I needed to know. And it kind of like encapsulates everything with his recruitment. She's such a joy to talk to. Like, just watching you interview her, I know you felt it during the interview, but just her warmth, even over the phone, and she's talking to Christian and like just everything. She's just such a joy to talk to and be around.
Nah, she's a lovely human being. Sean, I told her before the interview started that I was going to keep her for like 15 minutes, and I kept her for a half an hour. So if we're gonna quantify it, right? Like it just, again, I can't thank Shonda enough for taking the time for one. Just incredible backstory, man. Like it really was. Really appreciated her kind of covering the father, the passing of the father in the past, and she let Christian lead the pack for the recruitment, but as an educator, right? Like she understood the importance of like also being a guiding light in this recruitment to a degree as well, right? So fantastic interview. Honestly, hearing it back this time, even more than doing the actual interview, I got goosebumps, man, when she was talking about, just how much she loves Christian, like you could feel it, right? Like it was real. It's like rawness, and then you could feel it. And obviously it's a mother that just wants the best for her son. And she's, has another daughter that goes to Ohio State. We won't hold it against Shonda, by the way, but at least one of your kids made the right decision to go into Notre Dame, hopefully. So just a fantastic interview. So want to thank Shonda. Want to thank Sean, of course, for joining the show for one, but then also too, Sean, again, you did a tremendous job building that relationship with Christian and covering that. I like to think that people, if you've come here for Irish Breakdown, I like to think that it's for those types of backstories, right? Like that's the stuff that I think makes us unique, right? Like that conversation that you just had about the phone call, talking about church, because that was the thing that Shonda told me in that interview and the first time that we tried to record, is that like her three biggest things are family, faith, and education, right? Yeah. And you could just hear how much faith means to her, which is awesome, right? So I love it. I love it. So let's move on, though. Again, Shonda Gray, mother, Christian Gray, loved the conversation. It was truly a pleasure to have her on the podcast. We've now had 4 different parents on the podcast, Sean, which is pretty cool. I want to get to everyone, but some people have tough schedules, but appreciate Shonda so much for joining us today. So, Sean, big recruiting weekend this past weekend against Stanford. I know if you listen to our post-game podcast, you know that we were very critical of the team's performance, the coaching performance of their loss 16-14 against Stanford. And I know that some people in the chat are saying, oh, that was probably terrible for the recruits. I'll say this, Sean, I haven't gotten a single negative feedback, whether talking to a recruit that was on campus or talking to someone close to a recruit that was on campus or talking to someone that is close to the situation, that this weekend wasn't a success, right? It wasn't it was a success on the recruiting side of things. Was it a success on field? No, it was not. But on paper, from the recruiting aspect, Notre Dame moved the needle with a lot of kids this weekend. Let's start with the obvious one, where we had the announcement on Irish Breakdown at 4 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. Jeremiyah Love, running back out of Christian Brothers High School, Christian Brother Collegiate Prep in St. Louis, Missouri, committed to the University of Notre Dame. Sean did it live on our show. He had been silently committed to the staff since the bye week, Friday of the bye week. makes the full commitment on the show publicly. Huge get for Notre Dame, right? We haven't talked about it, me and you together yet. So just give me your thoughts. Obviously, a big get for Notre Dame, one that we knew was going to happen. Awesome to have on the show, but Notre Dame got a really good one in Jeremiyah Love in the 2023 class.
The class is building up, becoming even more impressive. Notre Dame as a staff is doing an incredible job mining the talent out of the St. Louis area. And Jeremiyah Love is one of the most explosive players that they can get from the area. 23 running back. You can use him in so many different ways. He's used in the passing game at Christian Brothers. He's an explosive runner. They use him running inside, outside. He's definitely, I think you wrote a great article just about a month ago on how important he was, or how important it was to get him in the 23 class because the type of playmaker he was. And so, I just echo those sentiments. And I don't know how similar his recruitment was to Christian. Ultimately, it came down to two schools, trying to make that decision. And it ended up going for Notre Dame, like you said, the Friday of the bye week. So St. Louis has now gotten to the standpoint where the influence is heavy based upon what Notre Dame has been able to do over the last 3 to 4 years. And so Notre Dame's going to be like top 3 just off the bat for a lot of kids in the St. Louis area, because you have kids that are in 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and freshmen that look up to these guys as the best players in the area, and they're saying, look, I want to go to Notre Dame too. I want to see what Notre Dame is all about. So now you have a head start, and that's how you kind of get a footprint in a particular area like that, signing some of the best players, and hopefully Ryan Wingo, Jeremiah McClellan, and the rest of the young guys to follow, and that talent-laden city and surrounding area will want the same type of attention from Notre Dame, and will see Notre Dame the same way as their predecessors.
Well, let's stay the St. Louis route, Sean, because it's a perfect segue. I missed the segue, man, from Christian Gray to Jeremiyah Love. It was such an easy segue, the St. Louis pipeline, right? But Notre Dame also had a couple very talented St. Louis prospects in the 2024 recruiting class on campus as well. Talked about Jeremiyah Love, the massive commitment. Again, congratulations to Jeremiah, Jason, his entire family for the commitment to Notre Dame. Christian Gray already in the class, but Jeremiah McClellan, 2024 wide receiver out of Christian Brothers as well, teammate of Jeremiyah Love, as well as Ryan Wingo, Sean, was on campus, who is, depending what platform you prioritize on the recruiting trails, is considered in the conversation as the top receiver in the 2024 class. So 2 dynamic pass catchers on campus. From everything that we've heard, I'm going to have a little more in-depth kind of analysis on the Ryan Wingo side of everything.
Yeah.
All I'll say is this. I talked to Jeremiah McClellan and a couple people close to him. They told me that, one, it was awesome to see Jeremiyah Love make his commitment. That was big for Jeremiah McClellan, right? That was a big moment for them as teammates, as brothers, all that good stuff, right? Like, that was a big moment for him. He also told me that Notre Dame is in a really good spot, right? Like they make a lot of sense to him. But Jeremiyah Love is not going to be the reason that Jeremiah McClellan picks Notre Dame, but it is a big help to the cause of getting a guy like a Jeremiah McClellan. So in a good spot with Jeremiah, leaving the visit. And I would also say this, for Ryan Wingo, this is now, again, the 4th time in the last year and a half that he has been on campus. That is the tangible stuff. And I know someone said this before, Sean. It was like, well, Cardinal Tate was on campus a ton. Yes, you're right about that. But I think that there are the things that are running the recruitment on both sides are a little different, right? And we'll just leave that conversation alone at that point. So Ryan Wingo, from every indication, I've asked multiple recruits, multiple parents. It sounds like the trip went very well. But I will have a little more in-depth as far as some analysis from the side of Ryan Wingo. And I think that both of them had a great time, obviously. But Sean, you talked about it a little bit already. I want to finish the conversation with those 2 players. Notre Dame is tapping into that St. Louis pipeline. Talk about Kyron Williams in the past. You talk about Gabriel Rubio on the roster right now. You talk about Tyson Ford on the roster right now. I also didn't know, Sean, that the coach for Christian Gray right now was actually Tyson Ford's coach last year. I found that out like a month ago, and I never said anything to you about it. But so you've tapped into the class now, or to St. Louis, the last couple of classes, and now you have an opportunity to really continue that pipeline with a couple of dynamic receivers in 2024. You're in good position with both. I think it's very important for them to continue to tap into St. Louis and get those types of dynamic players out of there.
You have to. The area is so fertile. I can go to, in my childhood and how good Illinois was as a program. They recruited East St. Louis and St. Louis very heavily. When you see the ascension of Oklahoma and you go back and look at the areas that they dug into, St. Louis was a pipeline for Bob Stoops and the Oklahoma Sooners when he ascended and brought that program to national prominence. Like St. Louis is a legit reason for a lot of programs taking a step or taking the next step and building a talent base on their team. And when you can't have Indiana as your fertile backdrop in recruiting, like in Ohio State has Ohio, like Michigan and Michigan State has Michigan, it's cool to be able to go to a Chicago, or it's cool to be able to go to a St. Louis and say, these are our two pipelines from these metropolitan areas to say, okay, this is our foundation. And from that foundation, now we can go out and add to that because we know we can go get guys from these two pipelines here. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And quick note, I know someone just put in the chat. I said it at the beginning of the show, but I just wanted to put it out there again. There's going to be 3 shows today. The one we're doing now, of course, which is Notre Dame Recruiting Hour at 6 o'clock Eastern time. They will have the IB Nation Sports Talk Show with Sean Stiers and Vince Dario. Tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern is upon further review. It's usually a Sunday thing, but there were some scheduling conflicts. I know Vince couldn't get on the show, and then Brian asked me, and I couldn't get on the show either with just running around and doing all that type of stuff. So tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern time will be the upon further review. All right, so Sean, that covers most of the St. Louis guys. We had some intel on the board at boards.irishbreakdown.com, but intel from both myself and Sean that went into that piece. So if you're not signed up to boards.irishbreakdown.com, you should go right now because it was a very lengthy intel piece. And then I had something that I put on the board this morning, Sean, that I want to have a conversation about for a second, okay? So we all heard the news leading up to the weekend that Christopher Tarek, who is a 2023 offensive lineman out of Glenbard West, he is committed currently to the University of Wisconsin, 6'6", 295 pounds, was going to be on campus in Notre Dame. The initial thought is Wisconsin commit. What's the deal there, right? You lost your coach as you looking around. And at the time, we had heard that this was going to kind of be an evaluation opportunity for Notre Dame, right? Like they had seen Christopher Tarek's film, liked it obviously, but hadn't seen him in person, wanted to just kind of do all the, the sizing up stuff. And because Notre Dame does want to get back to 5 in this offensive line class. You have a great baseline with Charles Jagasaw, Sullivan Absher, Sam Pendleton, and Joe Adon. Like that's fantastic. But they do want to add a 5th to this class. Now, my initial thought is, hey, true left tackle type is what you're going after in this class, right? Because that's what you don't have. You lost Elijah Page to USC. That was where he projected. And then people started asking about Christopher Tarek, and I'm like, I like Christopher Tarek in a vacuum. Is he a Notre Dame fit from a playing perspective? Yeah, he is. I see him more as an interior player, a guard, maybe a right tackle at the next level. I don't see him as a left tackle, right? So people ask about that, and I'm just like, we'll see what happens. So got intel directly from Christopher Tarek. So it's very good intel to have. I put on the board earlier. Christopher Tarek did get an official offer from the University of Notre Dame this past weekend. All right. So clearly the sizing up, figuring out the relationship, the fit makes sense for Notre Dame. So they did extend an offer to Christopher Tarek. They did. Now, next step with this guy, right? Christopher reiterated to me that he is committed to the University of Wisconsin. It's what he is right now, right? But the next week or two seems like it's going to be a little bit of a let's see what happens type of thing, right? There's
Right.
no process of decommitting. There's nothing out there right now, right? Like we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with this. All I'm saying, though, is that Christopher Tarek did get an offer from Notre Dame. He's interested in Notre Dame. Will that be able to trump his current commitment to Wisconsin? I have no idea. Just know that it is on his mind. He is weighing options, all that good stuff. But right now, he's still committed to the University of Wisconsin. But I think Notre Dame really made waves in this recruitment. So if the decommitment does happen in the future, I think Notre Dame will be in a very good spot for Christopher Tarek. But I'm not sure if it did quite enough to make him decommit for Wisconsin. So we'll leave it there. But that is kind of the intel that we have on Christopher Tarek. Again, 2023 offensive lineman out of the state of Illinois. Sean, I'm sure you probably have heard his name a little bit with your roots in the past, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially from Glen Bar West, that area out there, which is a fertile and really good upstate 8 division of high school football, very competitive. And, we say this all the time. Like anytime you look at a position in recruiting, you look to see which schools are recruiting that young man. And when you look at his offers and you see, oh, Iowa wanted him, Wisconsin wanted him, and he's an offensive lineman, then you feel like there has to be something there. Now, where he fits in with you, do they want him at a tackle at Iowa? Do they want him at a tackle at Wisconsin? That might not be what you want him to be at Notre Dame or where you forecast him to be. But that's a conversation you have with the young man on the visit. And if you can come to a ground or to say, look, you come in, you compete, and we'll figure out where to put you. We know we want you on our team and in our program. Then you have a situation where he gets an offer like he did this weekend. And like you said, nothing, he hasn't pulled the trigger. And I think out of respect, I love when recruits don't overreact to firings, at schools that they're committed to. Like allow the school to have the opportunity to fill that position, talk to the coaches, and then weigh the situation. The difficult thing for him is the coaching hire is probably going to be really close to signing day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So It's like, if you wait that long,
it might be filled up. There might not be other opportunities. Yeah, it gets tough. It gets tough. It's a numbers game at the end of the day, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, because this is what Notre Dame, this is what I'm thinking with Notre Dame's side of things, right? And again, we don't know if this is going to happen. This is just speculation. But if they, after a couple weeks here, if Tarek says, I'm committed to Wisconsin, like that's all it is, right? Like I'm not moving off of that commitment. Then Notre Dame has to go to the next kid, right, Sean? Or the next couple kids. Like they have to try to figure out if they want a 5th offensive lineman. Now, if it stays at 4 and Christopher Tarek around Saturday is like, hey, I had second thoughts and I don't want to go to Wisconsin, then you have a spot for him, but like that spot could fill up is the point to your points, right? Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man. But just a quick note on him. Did get offer extended to him this past weekend. We were the first to report that, by the way. That's why you sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com, and you would have known that at like 10 o'clock this morning. So make sure you go check out the board. Some fantastic info, in my opinion. Sean, talked about Ryan Wingo, talked about Tarek, talked about all the St. Louis kids. Last couple of guys that I want to talk about are commits that were on campus, okay? So one, CJ Carr, who's just making it a great stomping ground. He was on campus. Dylan Edwards was on campus. Great list of players that were on campus here at Notre Dame again. The one guy, though, that I really want to hyper-focus on, and I have a piece coming out on this young man here very soon, is Drake Bowen, another guy that you've gotten to know very well in this class, Sean. And look, I don't know if this is how the 2023 recruiting class sees Drake. Like, I'm not going to speak for all those kids, right? The 23 recruits that are in the class, 22 not counting Drake. But Drake Bowen strikes me as the leader of this group, right? Like, that's how he strikes me. He is clearly has a lot of respect from the other players in the class, and he's the guy, Sean. And again, he's an Indiana kid, so he can make this work, but he's there every single weekend, it seems like, right? He is all Irish. And I have a piece coming out today on some of the comments that he made to me after the trip. And I'll say this, Sean, that's the kid that people need to rally behind right now. That's the young man. Because through adversity, leadership is shown, right? That's where your leaders really show themselves. And again, things are not going the way Notre Dame wants it right now on the field. It's not happening, right? It's not. But through all the adversity that this team has went through, couple decommitments, couple unfortunate losses to subpar competition, that they were clearly the superior talents, and a lot of questions being thrown out about some coaches on the staff and their futures. I just want to take a minute to really applaud Drake Bowen because he stands the test of time, man, and he's what this 2023 class needs, in my opinion. That's the leader of this class for me.
Totally agree. And the way he does it. Like, he shows up, but he has a smile on his face. When they lose, doesn't change his temperament at all. His mindset towards the coaching staff, towards the program. He's not moved at all. And I'm going to say this, and some people might agree, disagree, but whether you believe it or not, this is the mindset of the 2023 class. They're coming to Notre Dame to change things. I'll say that again. They're taking it upon themselves as a 2023 class to come to Notre Dame to change things. Now, you might think Notre Dame and what was accomplished under Brian Kelly was fantastic. Multiple college football playoff berths, 10-win seasons consecutively for 5 years. Everything was great. But there was a recognition, and whether or not you want to believe it, nationally, the way Notre Dame was viewed by recruits was not the best.
Yep.
It wasn't the best. That changed with the hiring of Marcus Freeman. It continues to get better. And this task that's been put before the first 4 recruiting class, they're taking it. They want to come here and be the class that causes Notre Dame to take the next step and become a legit title contender. That's why you get the 3 receivers in the class on one of the worst moments after a home loss to Marshall, tweeting out together their conversation, wait until we get there next year, because they know and they expect their class to be the start of things changing.
Yep.
So
that's really well said. It's really well said, Sean. We literally had a question. We literally had a question, like basically asking that, right? Like, what's the pitch? And we'll get into that during the mailbag. And again, we're going to have one more part of the segment, and then we're going to hit the mailbag. So if you want to start throwing questions in, we already have a bunch that are starred, but keep throwing in questions. We'll be able to answer a bunch here at the end because we'll have a lot of time. So I agree, though. I agree. These players, we'll get into it more in the mailbag, but yeah, I agree. So this morning, Sean, I put out a piece. The weekly piece that I do every single Monday morning is a recap of some of the top high school performances from this past week. So I wanted to throw it in the chat real quick because I'd like to do that just so people have it, because I've told people many times I am a visual learner. So you talking at me and telling me things doesn't always sync, right? Like, it doesn't always get in the minds, but reading something does for me. So yes, I wanted to just throw that in. It's right there in the chat if anybody wants to take a look at the most recent article. So Sean, I love doing this, man, because these guys are playing their butts off all year, and they deserve a little bit of recognition for the great games that they've had over this past week. And I'll also say this is it gives us a little bit of a heads up, like, oh man, guy's pretty good, right? We should get a little excited about some of these guys that are coming to Notre Dame. So highlighted 6 players, including 1 player that pulled off a incredible highlight reel catch in this past week. And I'm sure you already know who that is that I'm talking about, Sean, because it's been circulating Twitter. First player, though, CJ Carr, quarterback, Saline High School in the state of Michigan. So, Sean, his team has actually lost 2 straight games now. Saline is now 6-2 on the year. They lost 21-14, to Dexter High School. But we know that we talked about it last Monday, right? CJ Carr had a bit of a bad day the week before, right? Like, it was a down game when they got shut out 7-0. This game was much more clean for CJ. 26 of 32 passing. 26 out of 32 passing for 225 yards, no turnovers on the day. That is an 81% completion percentage on this game. So CJ was sharp. He didn't turn the football over. It was nice to see him again because we talked about it after week 1. He had an uneven performance. He came back and he had a few good weeks in a row. After a bad week last week, it was nice to see him come back and be a very efficient and turnover-free passer this past week for Saline.
You know, we kind of talked about it. No, we really kind of glossed over it, right? Because people were kind of like ready to jump off the ledge over one bad game. He struggled. Once again, I can point, look, Dante Moore struggled the first 2 games of his senior season. Came to face Warren Central in Indianapolis, got smacked, and got sent back home. So this is football. This is why you play the game. Like, you can walk out there and, man, it's just not your night. And last game for CJ, it wasn't his night. And they lose 2 consecutive games. But as you watch the film, he had one spin move when he scrambled to the left and avoided a defender. And it's like, okay, I like this kid. More and more of his game, the more I watch him, the more I like certain facets of his game. And I can't wait to get him on campus. I can't wait to get him on campus. Who's going to be in control of him when he gets to campus? It's a whole nother conversation. But I can't wait to get this young man on campus.
Yep, and whether that is 2023 or 2024 class, because he's a 2024 quarterback right now. There's been a lot of conversations about reclassification. We'll see. Still has not been decided yet, but CJ Carr had a nice day for Saline High School. 2 running backs, Sean, that I want to hit on real quick. Well, sort of running backs. One's a running back on the next level. One is a running back currently, but will be a wide receiver at Notre Dame. Of course, the newest commit in the class. I'm so happy now, after a couple weeks of knowing that Jeremiyah Love was going to Notre Dame for sure, 100%, that I had to leave him at the bottom of these pieces as a target to watch, right? I can finally now put him in the commit column for Notre Dame. So Jeremiyah Love, Sean, wanted to put it in here because Christian Brothers moved to 7-1 after their 52-25 victory over Warren Central. Jeremiah had 85 yards and a touchdown on only 12 carries, so was not needed a ton in this game. But again, dominant team, Christian Brothers out of the St. Louis area. They have been that way for a few years now. Also in that game, 2023 wide receiver target Jeremiah McClellan, which we touched on, was playing Wildcat quarterback, Sean, and took one about 60 yards. So, he's pretty good too, man. They're both good football players. So he had a big day. Christian Brothers had a big day. And a weekly occurrence here, we talk about Dylan Edwards, the wide receiver commit from Notre Dame, but plays running back for Derby High School, Sean. They defeated Maize South 55-7. In this game, Dylan Edwards ran for 119 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also, highlight that hit the Twitterverse, had a 50-yard touchdown reception in this game where he made somebody look absolutely silly in the open field. So a couple dynamic playmakers, Sean, that I wanted to highlight this week. One being Jeremiyah Love, the other being Dylan Edwards. I know that people are less optimistic about the future of the skill position, but I think that a couple of these guys are going to do wonders at Notre Dame when they get here next fall.
Well, it's not as simple as just, you look at the offensive output being shut out at home against a poor Stanford defense and then only scoring 14 in the totality. Yeah, I would be frustrated and would be looking to add talent and speed to the roster. And the 23 class definitely is going to do that, add speed, athleticism, and explosiveness to the roster. You bring back a Jadarian Price from injury. So there are things to be happy about or to have hope about when it comes to that talent. But, there are some other issues that have to be solved as well. And then you're going to have to allow this talent, let me stop short because I was about to use the word developed and I'm not using that word anymore. It's like, look, these kids are good. Let them go play. They're good. Let them go play. Right? Do you remember over the summer, we did shows and people in the chat would say, yeah, This kid, he played for Georgia Tech. The ACC isn't that good. This, that. It's going to be a big difference going from the ACC to the SEC. What do you think about Jahmyr Gibbs now?
He's very good, man. He's very good.
Either you
I
can
had,
play
I,
or you
I had
can't.
a high opinion before he came, Sean. But yes, to your point, he's done pretty well.
Either you can play or you can't.
Yep.
I think several of these kids are going to step on campus, whether it's early or it's in the fall, and they're going to prove immediately, I need the ball.
Yeah.
Get me the ball. Now, once they prove that, it's up to the staff to actually do that in games. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talent offensively from a skill set position coming to Notre Dame in this 23 class.
There is, man. And I'll say this. I also have another piece coming out on Jaden Greathouse. The other reason that you should be on boards.irishbreakdown.com is Sean Smith, who contributes to the site as well. He put out he was actually in person this week against Westlake, Sean, Westlake's game against Dripping Springs, which is Austin Novosad's team. And he put out an intel piece that was just, I mean, he was just, yes, this guy's good. This guy's very good type of thing, right? So that's another reason that you want to get that little bit of intel at boards.irishbreakdown.com, because we have people that are actually seeing these guys in person and giving you real analysis, not just, cookie cutter stuff and rumors. I mean, we'll give you rumors, we'll give you intel, we'll give you all that stuff too, but we have people that can also break down film, which is always nice. So yes, they have weapons coming. Notre Dame has weapons coming. It has to be, did I say something incorrect? Oh, I said Sean Smith. I'm sorry. Sean Smith was a former defensive lineman for the Kansas City Chiefs. I meant Brian Smith. Thank you. Thank you, Salty. Yes, Brian Smith, who runs the Central Florida site for Sports Illustrated as well. Thank you so much for that error on my part. We're all human, all right? We're all human. I know I'm pretty awesome and good looking and intelligent, but yes.
Talk that talk, Brian. Talk that talk.
Try it, man. Try it. Salty asked, Ryan, when is the article in the Great One being published? Maybe today, Salty. If not, probably tomorrow morning. So that'll be out pretty soon. It was kind of a recap from his past game. Brian had a chance to sit down with him after the game to just get a few quotes and all that good stuff. He kind of gave his perspective on the transition to Notre Dame, what he's going to be working on, what his expectations are, like that type of piece. So, yeah. All right, Sean. So that is the pass catchers for the week, or the weapons, I should say. I wanted to highlight this one, Sean, because this is bananas. Okay, this is absolutely bananas. This is a defensive lineman that I want to get into next. Probably the most impressive game of the week. It's close. There's two defensive players on this list that I think had equally as dominant games. Yeah. But we haven't talked much about Owen Wafel, who is a 2024 defensive line commit out of the Hun School in Princeton, New Jersey, right here in my home state. The Hun School defeated Hill School. That's weird. Hun School versus Hill School. They won 48-7. Sean, in this game alone, Owen Wafel had 13 total tackles. Playing a nose tackle, 3-tech position also. He plays a little bit on the edge. He had 13 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks on this game. I'll say this again for people. This is not season totals. He had 13 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. Want to talk about a dominant season? Owen Wafel, so far this year, through 6 games, has 43 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks, while also playing fullback for his offense as well. So it was a dominating performance, Sean. Again, I just want to put this out in the universe again. 13 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks. Dominating performance from a guy that we don't talk about enough, Owen Wafel.
Look, you start talking about Wafel, you start talking about Armel Mook. You just go down the list. It's amazing how this staff at various positions has gone out, identified people that were kind of off the radar, outside the top 300 or whatever you want to say. All of a sudden, they offer these kids, they get on these kids, and then here comes the rest of the herd. After Notre Dame offers, here comes everyone else. And they got Owen Wafel early. But like you said, when you watch his film, eventually, I think I tried to comp him initially. I'm like, are they going to add weight to him and put him inside?
Yeah.
Are they going to leave him at a power end? Like what? what is this? And I'm starting to see like, you know what? Just let them play. Just let them play. Like find ways to use them and let them play. Because the kid looks like a kid that's going to come in and make plays and be disruptive on the defensive line. And that's needed. That's needed at Notre Dame. Like you talk about the speed and explosiveness needed on the offensive side of the ball. What you're seeing from Owen Wayful on film this year is very much needed on the defensive side of the ball at Notre Dame as you project forward. So he's one of those kids that caught my eye. I can tell you that. Him, Rico, Tayshawn Lyons as of late with the film they've been putting out there. And of course, Cam Williams this year has just kind of like taken off in season.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these kids, man, that Notre Dame got on and got commitments from, I don't know if Notre Dame really knew. Like how, like, yo, okay. I think some of the Notre Dame coaches are watching what Owen Wayful was doing and saying, oh, wow, okay. We knew he was going to be good, but.
Yeah. Well, Sean, it's a great point because Cam Williams, to your point, is now rated as a top 25 player in the country according to On3, right? And he's a borderline 5-star. I felt so good about that ranking coming out because I put out a piece last week that was like, hey, and we talked about it on the show last week. I was like, hey, Cam Williams might be a 5-star before everything's done. Like he might be, man. Yeah. He's been that dominant. And he looks great. And then to your point about Owen Wayful, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about him, right? Because we don't enough.
Right.
He was a interesting recruitment at the time, right? Because he's a 6'3", 270-pound defensive lineman, kind of a tweener. Like you said, is he an edge? Is he going to play in the interior? Where is he going to play? We know Notre Dame sees him as an interior player, most likely. I think he can play strong side defensive end, but I think they see him as a nose 3 tech, right? Like somewhere in there. Like he's a playmaking, one-gap penetration style player. So that's where they see him. But if you look at like the box score for a second, we know he was better than the box score indicated, but as a sophomore, he had like 5 tackles for loss and a sack, right? You're like, okay. But then this is why the evaluation period happens every offseason, right? They saw him in person a couple times. So they're like, oh, he's going to explode, right? Because he's physically so powerful, plays with an incredible motor. I mean, there is no plays off for Owen Wayful. And now we hear 6 games into the season, Sean. He just had a game where he had more tackles for loss in a single game than he had all last year as a sophomore. He took a huge jump from a sophomore to junior year. 19 tackles for loss through 6 games, 6 sacks, 40-plus tackles. I believe he leads the team in tackles playing defensive tackle, which is a hard thing to do. It's not easy, man. It's designed for linebackers to make a ton of plays, right? Like defensive tackles are not supposed to make that many plays. So he's had a phenomenal year, and he's on a team quietly. No one talks about the Hunt School enough, but the Hunt School puts out talent, man. A year-to-year basis. I mean, they have a senior quarterback that's going to Iowa. They have a senior offensive tackle that's committed to University of Oklahoma. They have another offensive tackle that I think is committed to Kentucky, if I remember correctly. Or no, sorry, they're committed to Illinois, actually. They have an offensive tackle that's committed to Illinois. So they have a really talented team, and Owen Wayful has been as good as anyone, right? So big time recruits. Now he's going to be trending upward in this recruiting class, and a dominant performance from Owen Wayful, man. So need to give him a little bit of props. And like you said, Cam Williams needs a little bit of props too. Didn't put him on this list because he's another guy that makes it every single week. Yeah. But a couple 2024 kids that are trending upward, being Wayful and Williams.
His that game you were talking about, his get off. Like he's chasing running backs down from behind. I was like, wait a minute. What happened? Like, what extra chip did they put in his back this year that he didn't have last year? But you can definitely see, I think you talk about it a lot. The jump from sophomore to junior year for most kids in high school, you see it. You know, some people call it the glow, whatever you want to call it. There's something special on Owen Wayful, right? And Notre Dame, whatever they saw during his sophomore year, I'm glad they saw it because now they're being rewarded for being able to diagnose, you know, what they saw in that film, and now they just have to lock in and keep them in the class. Because I definitely expect more programs to come calling.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I definitely expect the big boys.
Yes.
To see this.
Oh, man. Cam Williams is going to be hearing from every team in the country, Sean.
Yeah.
SEC. He's heard from most Big Ten schools at this point, but like SEC all the way to the West Coast. Because he's a high academic kid that can get into any school he wants. That's a high caliber football program. And he's got SEC speed. He's got SEC length. Like everything's there for him, right? Yeah. So to your point, yes, there's going to be a lot of suitors. Cam, every time I talk to him, though, man, and everything that he is on Twitter and all that type of stuff, he's locked in, man. He's locked in. So right now, you feel good about it. But, again, got to hold on to him, right? Got to hold on to him.
Got to hold on. Yep.
All right, last two guys I wanted to hit on before we hit the mailbag. Again, we have double-digit questions already starred for the mailbag, but keep throwing those guys in. I will keep starring them. Me and Sean will keep starring them as well. So, Sean, last two, couple defensive backs. One, Micah Bell. The Kincaid School pushed their record to 6-2 on the season. They defeated Episcopal School of Dallas, 20-17 on this day, on Friday, Sean. Not a huge rushing day for Micah Bell. He had 80 yards on 18 carries, so a very tough day as far as the yardage came, but he scored 2 touchdowns in this game. And they are on a good trend here. They're moving in the right direction. So another nice day for Micah Bell as a running back in a big victory for the Kincaid School. And maybe the performer of the week, Sean, arguable with Owen Wafel. I'm okay if you want to give the reward to Owen Wafel. I'm okay if you want to give the award to Adon Schuler, because Adon Schuler was balling in Irvington's 52-7 victory this past Saturday. Actually, no, they played Friday night. They played Thursday night. I'm all crossed up here. So, Sean, for people that don't know, Adon is a talented safety in the 2023 class. He had an interception that he returned to the house in this one. Interception, jumped a route on the sideline, took it back for 6. That would have been enough to get him on this list, right? Interception return for a touchdown and a big victory. Awesome. But for people that don't know, they've had their struggles offensively this year, Irvington. So they moved Adon Schuler to offense as well. So he's been playing Wildcat quarterback a ton. Sean, he had 239 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries. My man averaged 23.9 yards per rush, Also threw the ball for 7 yards. They let him throw the ball once and returned a punt for 20 yards. On the day, a defensive player who barely plays offense, he had 326 all-purpose yards in this massive victory. And by the way, they won 52-7, so he wasn't playing much past halftime, my friends. Adon Schuler was balling this weekend for Irvington, or this past week, I should say.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, yo, what has their coach been doing this whole time to allow him to be only on the defensive side of the ball? But he continues to be one of the best performers in the 23 class during this season. He's arguably, if you just want to go from a regional standpoint, he's arguably at least one of the top 5 players on the East Coast. Arguably, offensively, defensively. I'm talking about going all the way down to the state of Georgia and even into Florida. He's arguably one of the top 5 players when it comes to performers in their senior season and what they've been able to do. Doing it defensively and now adding the offensive side of the ball to the mix, he's fantastic. And you go from Adon Schuler, and I know recently everybody is worried about, Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide, giving him an offer and him posting the offer out of respect on social media. Once again, Notre Dame probably for the next couple of years is going to be that school that gets in on guys early, and Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia come in late and try to do what they do, take kids late. So, no different with Adon Schuler, but I don't know what his coach was thinking. What took you so long to get him on the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, his younger teammate who Notre Dame is in on as well, 2024 safety. I'm going to butcher the first name, but his last name is Toure. His brother plays at Rutgers, also Mohamed Toure. They moved him both to offense, Sean. So they are They're doing some good stuff, man. They're doing some good stuff for Irvington. And I like to note, we're going to hit on it a little more in depth. But yes, everyone wants to talk about the offer that he just received from Ohio State. We'll cover it a little more intently in the mailbag, but something to monitor, obviously. But I have talked to Adon. I've talked to someone close to Adon, and might have a special visitor to the podcast sometime soon that could give us some insight into everything happening there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But to your point, Sean, Notre Dame's struggling. So schools are going to come in, right? They're going to come in hot and heavy and try to get a couple of their guys. Like it's going to happen. It's going to happen, right? Last one. I said that Adon was last one. It's the last full scope one, but wanted to throw this in. I added a little end to this article this week. I called it the highlight play of the week. So I don't know if you saw this. Charlotte Catholic tight end Jack Larson.
I saw it.
Oh yeah, man. So they lost. They came out on the short end, 20-19 in this recent game. But you go look at the article, look at this catch. If you probably seen it on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, Jack Larson made this incredible catch, fading back through traffic. Just wanted to send Jack some props, man. Talk about hand strength, body control, and just toughness to win through contact. What a catch by Jack Larson. Another guy I know that you've gotten to know a little bit.
Man, that kid. Look, remember when we first met and started talking to him, his parents, they had taken a trip and they were kind of off the radar. So we ended up talking to his coach initially. And his coach is talking about like how this skinny kid walks on as a freshman and comes on the field. All of a sudden, he's just making plays and making all these crazy catches. That's how he came into the program. And now we're seeing that he's on that same wavelength even into his junior season. Their offense, with his offense, targets are not at a premium, but like when he is targeted, like he delivers. Great hands. You saw the hands on that highlight. And I said before, his name just rings out. Like if there's any name in the 23 or 24 class that you can hear coming over the PA system at Notre Dame Stadium, it's Jack Larson. Like you can hear Jack touchdown, Jack Larson. It just sounds natural.
Sean, it's tight end. It's the red hair. It's Jack Larson. Like everything is working for that one, man.
Lines up. So I joke with him about that all the time. He's connected to. He's the part of the trio that got it started in 24, right? Well, of course, Brandon Davis Swain got it started at the blue and gold game.
Yes.
For the 24 class. But then after Irish Invasion, it was CJ, Jack, and Cam.
Mm-hmm.
They're locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a fun question that I think we're going to talk about those three specifically here. But that is going to do this section of the podcast. We're going to call this one the recruit roundup and the visit recap from this past weekend. So before we move on to the mailbag, if you could please what the heck word was I trying to say? Like, subscribe to this podcast, hit the notification bell. We generally appreciate it. Go sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. 5-star reviews are always appreciated. If you don't want to give me a like on this video, give Sean Davis a like on this video. Give Christian Gray's mother, Shonda Gray, a like on this video. Really do appreciate it. Yep. Give us a thumbs up. Thank you all so much for that. So, Sean, that's going to end it for the recruiting portion of this podcast. All right, Sean, mailbag time. Let's do it. We have 13 questions queued. If you want to keep throwing them in there, please feel free to do so. Want to start with this one, Sean, because we got a super chat. Super chat to start the day from Matt Coffin. I think that's how you pronounce it, Matt. If I butcher that last name, please let me know, and I will make sure not to do it again. It says, and thank you so much for the super chat. Good thing Notre Dame has a smart recruits, and they know this offensive coordinator is going to be gone at the end of the year. It seems like only one person that can't read the room is Tommy. We're going to get back on the Tommy train here, Sean. Again, it's a super chat, so I'm going to put it up because we respect it so much. Look, man, Matt, and I appreciate it again. We talked a lot about the Tommy Rees stuff on the post-game show. I think everyone's feelings are pretty much out in the universe at this point. Notre Dame recruits, and I'll say this, and I'll kick it over to Sean for any thoughts that he wants to throw out there. Notre Dame recruits, I think they have a like coaching matters, right? Like their relationships with the coaches, I should say, like that stuff matters. There's no doubt about it. But when you're committing to a place like Notre Dame, there's also the other layer of like, hey, what can Notre Dame provide for me, right? Like what the full scope, academics, faith, all that good stuff, right? So there's a lot of different reasons that players pick the University of Notre Dame. But I do agree to the simple fact of like, hey, a coaching change, if it did happen, would be very unfortunate for some in the class, right? Because it is a relationship part of the business. Yeah. But I do think that most players that commit to Notre Dame, Sean, do it for a lot of other reasons other than just one coach. I'll just put it that way, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you look at the position on the offensive side of the ball. Heck, the wide receivers that we mentioned that are in the class with a possible fourth in Tayshawn Lyons, they know what the offense is. They knew what the offense was when they committed. Mm-hmm. The running backs and the tight ends and the offensive linemen, offensively, heck, this offense is wonderful for them. So we're really only talking about one position group that can really kind of look at the offense and kind of frown upon it. And they're locked in, and I don't think at that point, with everything that Notre Dame kind of like represents for a young man, you might have one that might feel a certain way if there's something was to happen.
Yeah.
But other than that, Brian, you said it perfectly. Notre Dame is bigger than that. And I think a lot of these commits decided on Notre Dame for more than just strictly football.
Yeah, because it matters, right? Like it matters. If Tommy Rees was out at some point or after the season or whatever, like it would matter to a lot of recruits. Like we're not going to sit here and say like it doesn't matter. Yeah. My whole point is, and I know you were kind of reiterating it, Sean, too, is that if a change like that would happen, I think there's a general understanding of like, hey, could a decommitment happen? Sure. Could multiple players? Who knows? Maybe. But like, again, most players, and you heard from Shonda Gray, right? If Shonda Gray, I think, kind of portrayed it perfectly, right? It's the fact of like, hey, there's a lot of different layers to recruiting, right? Like there's a lot of different things that matter. And I feel like most kids that do pick Notre Dame ultimately understand that is the only thing I'm saying, right? Like they understand that all those things matter together. So yeah, just putting that out again in the universe because I think it's a great conversation piece. Again, Matt, thank you so much for the super chat. Really do appreciate it, sir. Really do appreciate it. All right, Sean, we're going to go to Quinn Kibler next. He says, Mailbag. Thank you, Quinn, for the question. B. Ryan / Sean. Cyan? Or do you like Ron better? What's our name going to be together, Sean? It can't be B. Ryan. Do you want to? I don't know. We'll think about it for next show. Do you guys think that we will see a similar quarterback commit shuffle at the end of the year with fired coaches like last year? Guys like Brown and Evers who decide to go elsewhere after coaching changes. Sean, I think it's possible, right? I don't know. Like, it really depends what jobs come open, what the circumstances are. But in the world as it is today in recruiting, coach changes can make a shuffle, I think. Sure.
That goes without saying. But even bigger than that is just the opportunity to go play somewhere else. The transfer portal is always hot and lit. Like, no coaching changes or not. The transfer portal, because kids want to be able to play and they can go make the decision and immediately play at their next destination. Mm-hmm. That's really what's at the forefront of everything. And then, of course, coaching hires, whether it's a certain coach that coached them going to another school and they want to follow that coach, or their coach no longer being there at the program, they want to go somewhere else. It definitely has an influence.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's about being real, right? Like it's about being real too, because especially with the transfer portal the way it is now, like people are just going to leave all the time because of coaches at times. Like it's going to happen, but could it cause some movement, Quinn? Of course it can. Yeah. It matters because like right now we have the 5 vacancies that we've talked about, right? And in those 5 situations, not a ton of desirable, like flippable quarterbacks, right? But could another job open up where you're like, oh, wow, kid's a diamond in the rough. That kid, does a coach leave for a bigger job? Does a coach leave for the NFL? There's a lot of different circumstances that could lead to that exodus at the quarterback position. So interesting question. Again, always can happen. Yes, it can happen. So thank you, Quinn. Appreciate it again. All right, going to go to Marcel here, Sean. So what up, y'all? What updates can you all give us about 2023 quarterbacks? And is there any truth about Marcus Freeman once wanted to bring David Cutcliffe in as an offensive analyst? We're going to skip the second part because I don't know. I'm not really sure. That's something that maybe Brian can hit on tomorrow. I'm sure he would probably have a better understanding of if that's factual or whatever. I personally don't know. There's a lot of things that get thrown out there on Twitter and just in the media in general. That's clickbaity stuff. I don't know if that's true. I don't. Would it be wise? I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, why wouldn't you want David Cutcliffe on your staff? But I genuinely do not know, Marcel, if that is true. Don't know. What updates can you give us in 2023 quarterbacks? Sean, I'll say this, and this is a slight tease to everyone. I have seen a list of a few different quarterbacks that Notre Dame is now targeting. We got that about a week and a half ago. I'm not going to put it out in the universe because we don't know what quarterbacks are going to be interested, but the fact of the matter is that the board is about to expand, or it has expanded, I should say. So we will have some more intel as far as what quarterbacks you should be keeping an eye on, but I do know I've seen the names. I have seen a little film on some of them. We are not allowed to disclose it to the public yet, but there are names that have been thrown out there in the quarterback conversation. They're still keeping in contact with the Avery Johnsons of the world, the Kenny Minchies of the world. They're still doing that. But I'm saying that it's expanding a little bit just because you have to get a quarterback in the class, right? You have to, in my opinion. So we'll have some update. And again, Marcel, the first place that you'll get that is at board.irishbreakdown.com. As soon as we can disclose that information, sir, we will disclose that information. I promise to you. This light is killing me in here today, by the way. I am about to just turn this thing off in a second. So, Sean, I'm going to do that, actually. So I'm going to kick that one to Marcel. Again, thank you for the question. I'm going to hit this one and throw it to you first. So Salty Virginia Peanut says, the recruits see poor performances by players at their position as a negative or a positive. They may play sooner, ? So negative or positive, Sean, for negative performances at the position you play?
I mean, generally speaking, recruits like seeing successful players at the position they're going to be playing because it deals with development. Now, you don't want to watch a team or a player that's playing the position that you play and you see them struggling, right? Because it makes you question, what's going on with the development and the coaching, right? Most kids want to come in and compete, but most kids don't want to walk into situations where things are just handed to them. That's just naturally. But you get a great kid like Peyton Bowen, who is watching these games, and without question, or a kid like, Jaden Greathouse, with the mindsets they have, they're absolutely watching these Notre Dame games saying to themselves, yeah, I can play immediately. I can play. So it goes both ways, and it's based upon the individual. But I think for most guys, they want to go to places, and they make the decision to go to places because at that position, they trust the coaches, they trust the development, and, guys that are already there playing well kind of confirms that decision, right? And, I mean, of course, if you commit to a place and you see a player struggling at that position, yes, you feel good about going there and having the opportunity to play early, which I don't care who you talk to, every recruit wants the opportunity to play early. Every single one. No one's telling a recruit, look, son, we're going to bring you in, let Matt Bayless just work on you a little bit. You have no shot to do anything your first year. That might be the way they feel, but I don't think that's the part of your pitch to get a kid to commit to your program, right? So a great example of that, because there are always circumstances that are outliers in recruiting, Ryan.
Yep.
Take Emil Wagner.
Yep.
He's an outlier. That's a kid that you can tell him pretty much, kid, you can be a first-round left tackle if you just let us take a year, build you up, get you ready. By the time you're a sophomore, you'll be ready to roll. Mm-hmm. And we can get you to the next level at this position.
Yep.
That's an outlier. right? Because as athletic as he was, he could have come in at a tight end and been in the tight end room. But they saw more, and they said, "Yo, we can get you to this level," and he bought in. So you have outliers like that, but for the most part, in my opinion, I don't think recruits. I think for me, recruits will much rather see players playing well at their position, so that they can feel good about the coaching and the development. Right? Yeah. It's the reason why players choose Alabama, Ohio State. There's a reason why kids go there.
Because they know where it's going to take them, right? Like they know the trajectory, right? I mean, absolutely. I was talking about this with linebackers at Alabama there for a little bit, right? Because they had a great string of it. It was like Reuben Foster was a first-round pick. He didn't start until his junior year, Like Reggie Ragland didn't play until his junior year to play in the NFL for a little bit. Like these programs that recruit at this high of a level, some of these players aren't going to be instant guys. Like there's always going to be those outliers. I mean, like there's always going to be the Calvin Ridleys that come into Alabama and start day one, right? Like it's always going to be those types of guys, but they're more often than not, a lot of these guys are guys that kind of get, pulled along at a slower pace and to, not kind of, it's not a sink or swim at some of the bigger programs that recruit at that high of a level. Usually there's always going to be players that play early because they're that talented. No doubt. Salty, to your question, for me to just add on a little bit. Sure, I know you mentioned Peyton Bowen briefly, but Peyton Bowen has talked openly about like, hey, playing time means a decent amount to me, right? Like I want an opportunity to play early. Like I want an opportunity to compete. And for a lot of kids, they see the same thing, man. And especially with how the transfer portal is now, going back to that for a second. Some guys, if they don't get a legit opportunity to play early, or they don't get what they think they deserve early, individually, they will take that opportunity out because playing means a lot to them, as it should. Like I want every player to come in and be like, yeah, I'm the dude, I can play. Like, I want everyone to think that, for sure.
Well, let's be honest, right? You're talking about Peyton Bowen and Jaden Greathouse.
Yep.
It wouldn't matter who was in the room when they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
They think they're better. They have a dog mentality. They're like, yo, I don't care who I have to compete against. I'm one of the best in this room. Like people can sit back and say, oh, well, he has more of a chance to play at Notre Dame because of this. He would have a great chance to play if he went to Alabama. He would have a great chance to play early if he went to Ohio State. Like with a talent like that, he throw any college out there. Peyton Bowen's going to have a chance to play. Doesn't matter where he chooses. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. Doesn't matter where he goes. It's a good chance that he's going to be on the field early as a freshman. Same thing with Jaden Greathouse. Same exact thing. Just because of the players they are. So, guys like that, it doesn't matter. Like you said, he's talked about playing early. And one of the things he said about Notre Dame is that he knows that he can go in and play early at Notre Dame.
Yep. To your point. And I love Salty's question because there's a lot of nuance to it, right? As for like what's in front of you, the poor performance because then there's the other thing of like, Sean, do they know how to use me right? Right? Will I be productive in the role? Like that's another big that's another big talking point. Like I know people talk about the wide receiver position a lot. It's like, why would a wide receiver want to come right now if they're not getting anything out of Lorenzo Styles? And like, okay, I hear you, man. I hear you. I get it. But there's what, like, I'll say this, that I think it's a pretty consistent thing across the 2023 class from everyone that I've had a deep conversation with and that I've gotten to know really well, which is basically everyone at this point. A lot of these players, and you mentioned Jaden Greathouse, I'm going to use him as an example. Mm-hmm. No matter what's in front of him, he thinks that he is going to be better than that, right? Yes. Like he has a confidence to him where he's going to come in and he is going to be a dog. He doesn't care what's in front of him. He doesn't care what circumstances in front of him. He's a dog, man. Like he is. He's going to come in and he thinks that he's going to change things, right? And I think that is a growth mentality. These guys, a lot of them, think that they are the missing link. They think that they're the change that is going to get Notre Dame back to the top of the mountain that they should be at, right? Yep. That's what Jaden believes. That's what Peyton Bowen believes. That's what a lot of these guys, that's what, go to the 2024 class. That's what Cam Williams believes. That's what CJ Carr believes. Like, they don't care what's in front of them, man. They care about what they call about They care about what they're bringing to the table. They can care less about who's not producing, who is producing. They think they will. Like, that's different, right? Like, that's the thing. Not everyone's like that. Like, there's some guys that are going to look at it differently. But I'm just saying, for the most part of the guys that I've talked to, they have a growth mindset. They know what the coaches are telling them about what they'll do. But more importantly, they think they'll do it, right? Like, they think they'll change it. They think they are the reason that it's going to make the change happen. The 2023 class, think big, right? Think big. They think that they are the change.
Yes.
And that's different. It's different. And it's exciting. And it's unique. And it's awesome, man. It's awesome.
That's why they're not as frustrated as we are as the fan base with 3-3.
Yep.
They're not frustrated.
No.
They're like, oh, okay. Let's go. Wait till we get there. Think big. We're the reason. And that's a great starting point for this class. Absolutely amazing starting point for this class. It's another thing to think about. How does the coaching change, right? What do you do if you get a talent like Peyton Bowen running a 4-2 at safety and you have him at free safety? Do you go single high more? Do you stay back in the cover 2 or the 2 deep? Like, when you get that type of talent, it not only impacts the players and the players around them, it impacts the coaching. Like, as a coach, like I said, Ryan, as a coach, you get a 4-2 safety that can play center field. And with Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey in their second year, you think I'm not being more aggressive? You think I'm not dialing up a little bit more man-to-man? Like, heck
I hope so.
Yeah. Like, it changes everything. Jaden Greathouse, you think, wait, who you think on 4th and 8, who are we going to? You get a dog mentality like Jaden Greathouse? I don't care if he is a freshman. Hey, I'm trying to find that dude.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find that dude. Because he wants the ball in this situation.
You could just hear it with Jaden, man. And again, in this thing that I'm putting out in this article, Sean, Jaden literally said, Brian asked him, where do they see you at Notre Dame? You know, like, he's talking about, like, positionally, right? Like, are you a Z? Are you an X? Or where are you? Right? W, where are you? And he said, they see me as a receiver. I can move everywhere and just get me the ball. And I'm like, yes, that's it, man. That's it. That's a kid that doesn't care where you put him, man.
At all.
That's a kid. Like, that's what they need. I mentioned Drake Bowen earlier, right? Notre Dame needs those types of kids that believe in themselves and believe in the program and believe in this class, all right? There's going to be a lot of doubters. There's going to be a lot of adversity that's going to hit. All that stuff's going to come, man, and it's already coming. Yeah. But all I know is that this class, 2023, that's ranked in the top 3 across every recruiting platform and still has a chance to grow because there's still a lot of spots still open, or not a lot of spots. There's still spots open, though. I'm going to still feel optimistic about it, man. Is Marcus Freeman the guy? I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know. Is this coaching staff going to change it? I don't know. But what I know is that they are targeting players that believe in it, right? And that is half the battle. That's half of it. So I'm still excited as a Notre Dame fan for a second, taking the analyst hat off. I'm still excited about it because I had the fortune of talking to a lot of these players, right? I had the fortune of talking to them and hearing what their belief is, what they see of themselves, and where they think this thing is going. You talk to Drake Bowen, and it's like, we're going to be good, man. We're going to be good. Like, we're good. Did I want to win? Did I want the team to win on Saturday? Of course I did. But it didn't happen. But you know what? Like, I still love Coach Freeman, and I still believe in it. Believe in it. The belief is the part that a lot of people have a hard time buying in. And could them not playing well hurt that belief in some people? For sure. For sure. Not saying that. Because you heard me on the post-game show. I was down in the dumps, man. I'm so down in the dumps on the team right now, man. Like, it's not good right now. It's not. But for things to change, you need people that believe, right? Like, for things to change, you need that belief. And Notre Dame has guys that believe. So we'll see how it works out. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think they're going to get it turned around. I do. And I truly think that there's a lot of people in the 2023 class for Notre Dame that aren't worried about what's happening right now. They're worried about what's going to happen. And it's refreshing. It's refreshing, man. So, yeah. Great question, though, Salty. Thank you. Man, Sean, we went on a tangent on that one, man. I thought that was going to be like a minute conversation, but that went a little long. It's good.
Good question.
Yeah, that was a great question. Bailey Brad said, I think that the Cam Williams pickup has been underrated on 3. And I'm going to go to you on this one, Sean. On 3 updates him to a borderline 5-star, so huge to get him on board early. Yes.
Same bias, right? There's bias always geographically when it comes to certain positions. Skill positions, a lot of skill position players from the Midwest, whether it's Illinois, it just won't get that love, right? But recently there's been a spike. You've had 2 wide receivers go to Ohio State out of the state of Illinois. You got Cam Williams committed in 24. Carnell Tate, of course, going to Ohio State, originally from Illinois. So the track record is there. You have A.J. Henning, who's kind of like a duo kid who played running back, wide receiver out of Illinois up in Michigan. So now maybe, the skill position players in the state will start to get a little bit more respect. But I think from a recruiting service standpoint, there's always going to be a geographic bias towards, wide receiver, running back, and those positions because they just expect more explosiveness from players that come from Florida, Georgia, California, and other areas. So, it's par for the course.
Yeah. What's funny, Sean, is that when Notre Dame, not even when they offered Cam, when Cam committed, I thought, good football player, man, like good, smooth player. And then I heard that he ran 4.4 something at a Notre Dame camp, right? And I'm like, I didn't really see 4.4 on film. And then you see his junior film, you're like, oh, that happened in the offseason. That's where the speed is now, right? So it's I love it, man. I love it. I love talking about this stuff because Cam Williams deserves everything that he is getting right now because he is dominating the level of competition in Illinois right now. So shout out to Cam. I know he has watched the show at points. So if you're listening to Cam, shout out to you, sir. You're having a great season. Archer said, Ryan and Sean, who is the Drake Bowen guy for 2024? That meaning, who's the leader, Sean? Who's a guy that you can lean on in that regard?
Well, anytime you have a quarterback in the class, that's one of the top candidates. But actively talking, like Cam talks to Drake Bowen a lot.
Yeah.
Cam Williams talks to Drake Bowen a lot and just kind of like his ideas on, how he goes about. That was like the first when Cam Williams left the Irish invasion, the first person he was texting with was Drake Bowen.
That's awesome.
And that was like on the road back home. Like he didn't even wait until he got home. Like they were talking on the way back. So, and Cam is all over. He's important because look at the guys he's up talking to. Relationship with Ryan Wingo.
Oh, yeah.
Great relationship with Justin Scott.
Oh, yeah.
Quite possibly 2 of the most important recruits in the 24 class.
Up there, yeah.
So right now, if I had to cast my vote, I would probably cast it for Cam Williams right now, being that leader.
I think it's 2 for me. Cam's 1.
Yeah.
CJ Carr's the other, like we talked about, right?
Quarterback.
Yeah, he's the quarterback. He's the ringleader. He's the tone setter, whatever word terminology you want to use for that, every cliche in the book.
Yeah.
And he's on campus very, very often. Makes that 2.5-hour drive to South Bend. He shows his face. He's very engaging young man. Yeah. Him and Cam, I think the personalities are what separates them, right?
Yeah.
In a vacuum, quarterback, yes, of course. But CJ is a very engaging young man, and Cam Williams is a very, very engaging young man. Those guys, they have a energy about them that you just kind of buy into a little bit, right? So to your question, Archer, I would also agree with Sean. Cam Williams is definitely one. CJ Carr is the other. Those are the 2 guys that, like Jack Larson talks, right? Like he's a really good player, top 50 player, rated on 247, really good tight end out of Charlotte Catholic, but he's not like vocal like those 2 are, right? Like those guys are kind of the vocal leaders of this class. Brandon Davis Swain is a little vocal too, but like I would still say it's CJ and Cam for me. Like those are the guys.
Once again, geographically, it's a lot easier for Drake, CJ, and Cam to be leaders and get to campus consistently, be at all the games. They're just closer than Jack Larson, who's out there in North Carolina. And it will be a little bit more difficult for him to get to campus and be more involved on game days and things like that. But,
it's a great point. Yeah, because we know that Drake is so active because he can just get to campus whenever he wants, right? Yeah. CJ gets on campus all the time. Cam gets on campus all the time. They are geographically in a spot where they can do that, Sean. So that's a great point. I didn't even mention that. That was a really, really good point there. So let's go to next one from Anthony Solomon. He said, recruiting is where it starts, but the development of players translate to on-field success is crucial. And I just wanted to pull up this comment because, agree, Anthony, like this is the starting point, right? The starting point is getting the talent in the door. From there, it's your coaches, it's your support staff, it's the strength and conditioning coach, Matt Bayless, who's done a great job during his career at Notre Dame. All those things need to work together to get the most out of your players. 100% agree. There are some players on this roster right now, especially pertaining to the 2022 group, that Notre Dame's coaches are not getting the most out of their talents. Like, that's not a secret, right? We know this. So I just wanted to pull up because I agree with you 100%. Notre Dame not only needs to have the acquisition of talent, they also need the development of talent. That also matters, obviously. That's more important. Well, not more important. If you don't have the talent, you can't develop the talent, but it is equally as important to develop the talent as it is to acquire the talent, Sean. Yeah. Right. So let's go now. Great comments, by the way, Anthony. Just wanted to pull that one up again. All right. So wanted to talk about this too, Sean, because we've already talked about this intently, but I just want to kind of end the conversation here on this question. So Doug Hampton said, how are the incoming wide receivers supposed to feel when the leading receiver is the tight end? Doug, again, I think there's a growth mindset with a lot of players in the 2023 class for Notre Dame. I don't think Jaden Greathouse cares that Michael Mayer is the leading receiver. I'll put it like this. With Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores and Braylon James and like those dudes, right? They are so confident in their abilities that even if Michael Mayer was on the team in 2023, let's say, for some reason, I don't know why that would ever happen, but even if Michael Mayer was on the team in 2023, Jaden Greathouse would still think he'd be leading the team in receptions and yards. Like that's how they feel about themselves, Sean. I think Braylon James thinks that way. I think Rico Flores feels that way. I think Jaden Greathouse feels that way. I think they think like, who cares who's leading the team in the receiving yards now? I know it's going to be me when I get there. You know, like that's what they think. I think
they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. That's like blood is in the water with this wide receiver core in 23. They smell it. Like, yo, we're going to get targets. That's once again, the 23 class is all about change. They feel like they're the class to change everything. The way things are done, the way things are operated, the narratives. Notre Dame doesn't have enough speed. Okay. Here we come. And when they get here, they're going to have to show it.
Yep. That's it, man. They got to prove it now. To your point, got to prove it. Coaches got to do the best job to put these guys in position. Archer asks again, what kind of results does Marcus Freeman need to produce this season and keep an elite 2024 class and build another elite class in 2025? Do you think that there's a season result, Sean? I mean, we're sitting at 3-3 here right now for Notre Dame. Do you think he needs to go 7-5, 8-4? Does he need to go on a massive run? Like, do you think it matters? I guess is the question.
As far as this season or like the seasons to come?
I think it's about this season.
Okay.
To momentum to 2024, and then 2025.
I think this season is probably more impactful to 24, in my opinion, because the team's going to get better. That's just my opinion. The team's going to get better. So 25 would take care of itself because you'll see improvements. This season is a little bit more impactful for 24 because most of the 24 kids are going to make their commitments in the spring of 23, going into the summer. And by that time, look, I fully expect them to go in with like 20 commits in 24.
Yep.
20 to commits and maybe have like 3 to 5 on the table that they're trying to close a deal on. So this season is more about 24, in my opinion, moving forward and impacting that. I think they'll be better next year. So 25 will kind of take care of itself.
I think that in the short term here, Archer, because I agree, Sean, like this matters more for the 2024 class right now than it does 2025. Like it's still a long way until it get there, right?
Yeah.
But I would say this, that for me, this season is already looked at as a failure if you're Notre Dame. If you went 9-3, it's below the standard, right? The standard that we always talk about. I think that some people, I'm not saying it's 100% what it should be, right? But there's going to be a lot of people that are going to give Marcus Freeman a pass on this season if it's a disappointing one. And they're going to say, let's see what you're building, right? Let's see what you've deprogrammed. Let's see what 2023 looks like. So to this question, Archer, I think 2023 is more important as a wide scope, right? Because you're not going to get passes 2 years in a row. You shouldn't get a pass for 1 year, if I'm being honest. You shouldn't. But there are circumstances. Your quarterback gets hurt, yada, 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 brand new coaching staff, all that stuff, right? Like all that stuff's a part of the equation. But I think that 2023 season, there's nowhere to hide, man. Like if Notre Dame comes out and they underperform again, sirens start going off and recruiting takes a huge question at that point, right? So I think this offseason building to 2023 is going to be very important for Marcus Freeman. I think it's a sort of a make or break at that point. So
unfortunately, this is not like buying a home or selling a home. And when you sell it, you go to the utility company and make sure that the account is closed. That's not the way college football works. The account is still running. Like some of the same kids carry over to the next head coach and the next regime. And I agree with you. Marcus Freeman does not get a pass, but he shouldn't get a pass on the things that should be accounted to him. Right? The things that we're seeing that should not be accounted to him, in my opinion, undisciplined play, horrible penalties, poor tackling, specifically at certain positions. We've seen that the last 2 years at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So now we have to dig deeper and ask ourselves, okay, what's at the core of this? Because this has been the case. If Jack Cohn was the quarterback this year, Notre Dame is probably 5-1.
Yep.
Even with the way they have played, they're probably still 5-1 because they would have had a guy that will make plays in fourth quarters against Marshall and against Stanford.
Yep.
They'd be 5-1, but it would be masking the bigger issue. So when Marcus Freeman tells the media today, I'm not trying to build upon what Brian Kelly did. I'm trying to build something anew. He's trying to tell you, look, Harry Heastan told us, relax when it comes to Alt and when it comes to Blake Fisher. Because I have to tear some things down before I start building.
Yep.
They're young. Give me some time. And eventually they can become what we all think they can become. But there's still some residue from what was. If there was no Jack Cohn, you lose to Toledo. If there's no Jack Cohn, you lose on the road to Virginia Tech. And Lord knows, you probably lose to Purdue at home if there's no Jack Cohn. Like, let's not sit here and act like Notre Dame played so well last year to get the 10 wins. They didn't. There were some games in there that were saved. So some of the same issues we're seeing. And you just don't have an offensive-minded coach that when things are going wrong can scream up and say, yo, this is what we need to go to. Tommy Rees doesn't have that anymore with Brian Kelly on the field. Your head coach is a defensive-minded coach. And regardless of what you feel about the defense, they've held every opponent at least 8 points under their scoring average. We can nitpick about the linebackers. We can nitpick about Isaiah Foskey, Brandon Joseph. We can nitpick all we want to. At the end of the day, the defense has played well enough to win every single game they've played. Every single game. But the mental errors, the penalties, and they're coming from leaders, not youngsters. No. They're coming from leaders. But these are some of the same things that we've seen time and time again at the end of the Kelly era. So it's not just, Marcus Freeman. No, this is something has to be solved that has been there consistently. And so that's the bigger issue. It's like this year is really not about wins and losses for me at this point. It's like, man, we have to figure out what's wrong with the foundation. What's really going on?
Yep.
Because we're trying to coach them and they're still not getting across. So what is it? It's a much bigger issue.
Yeah. And I wanted to pull up this real quick, Sean, just to answer real quick. Sean Kelly said, why should he get a pass? He inherited a team that was 11-1. He didn't take over a dumpster fire. So I didn't say he should get a pass. I didn't. In fact, I said that he shouldn't get a pass, right? Like I said that.
Properly account to him.
Yes.
What is his fault?
Right.
Undisciplined play is not just his fault. They were undisciplined under Brian Kelly for the past 2 seasons. And just because they had 10 wins, this is the problem.
It's what Brian talks about all the time. It's the process versus
empty calories, yo. Yeah. Empty calories. Were you a 10-win team, legitimate national title contender, or were you just a 10-win team that barely won some games that you had no business with them? That Toledo had no business coming into Notre Dame Stadium playing a close game. Is that not the same thing we're seeing with Marshall and Stanford? Notre Dame had no business playing a close game against Florida State last year. We got to stop. It's bigger than Marcus Freeman, but stop. For some reason, this program has not done the job and has been undisciplined and has not performed up to the level of the expectations of the talent on the roster. And it just didn't start this year. So let's not play that game just because they're 3-3. The record masked who they were. Yeah. Last year.
Why did they come short in so many big games? Because they weren't good enough. They weren't good enough. And we're doing this thing now where it's like, what Brian Kelly would have done is who cares? Brian Kelly isn't here anymore, for one. And for two, Brian Kelly wasn't going to win anything anyway. Like,
no.
We're mad because Marcus Freeman lost against Marshall. I get it, man. I have pride in Notre Dame as well. I have pride as much as anybody, but who cares? Who cares? If Brian Kelly wasn't taking him to the championship, then a change should have been made either way. I'm not saying Marcus Freeman's the guy. Maybe he's not, but like, what? I don't know. I don't know why we're like, I wish we could go back to Kelly. Like, no.
But the problem is bigger. I think we keep it 100. I think Brian Kelly recognized that the issue was bigger.
Yeah.
And I think he fully recognized what he had left or what was coming back at the quarterback position. I think he recognized, like, you know what? I've gotten it to its apex. This is a slow decline, and I'm holding on just to be able to win 10 games. Like, do you know how much of a grind it was for Notre Dame to have that season they had last year? And if Jack Cohn doesn't transfer in, that could have been that season last year could have been really bad. Really bad. You put Drew Pine behind that offensive line last year.
Yep.
And see what happens.
Yep.
For a full season.
Yep.
It's like we're kidding ourselves, man. Being happy about the fact, oh, they went to an NY6 and we won these games. Go look at the games individually and tell me when Notre Dame played a full, complete game that you were happy about. Not the outcome. I'm talking about what you saw.
Yep.
Where you felt like, yeah, this team played up to expectations.
It's just, it's so frustrating, man. It really is. And again, like this isn't and Sean, I completely understand what you're saying. I hope you didn't take this as like an attack. I really hope not. It was not what the intentions were. I just wanted to dispel it, right? Because I didn't say he should get a pass. All I'm saying is I said that Marcus Freeman needs to be, held accountable. Your record is what it is, right? Like they're a 3-3 football team right now. It's not good enough. Everyone knows that. All I'm saying is that why do we have to take it back to Brian Kelly? And I know you didn't necessarily do that, but you did say he inherited 11-1 football team. So you're like, oh, Brian Kelly did better. And like, I just think that that's so flawed, right? Like, I just think that thinking is so flawed. Because to your point, empty calories, right, Sean? Who cares if Brian Kelly took them to 11-1 last year? We know that in the big game, they would have gotten destroyed. They were not a good football team last year. So you want Notre Dame? Like Notre Dame's not a good football team this year. You want them to go 11-1? Okay, yeah. Cool. What did 11-1 get you? They're still not good. They're still not good. You can dress a pig as pretty as you want, but it's still a pig, man. It's not good right now. Needs to get better. Let's give him a little bit of time.
Can you bring up Archer's comment? Because if I'm going to be quoted,
directing to you.
I want to be quoted correctly.
All right, let me read it first, and I'll let you go. All right, so Archer said, Sean, you were talking about TB12, Tyler Buckner being the Heisman conversation, and Notre Dame making the playoffs in the preseason. Let's not get too revisionist history with BK leaving because of a lack of talent.
First of all, I never said TB12 was a Heisman candidate. That's not what I said. You need to go watch the show. I said any quarterback at Notre Dame that wins big games will be in the Heisman candidate because they're the quarterback at Notre Dame. Those were my words. Tyler Buckner happened to be the starting quarterback. It wasn't because of him. It was because of the fact that Notre Dame in this weak schedule, I don't care what you say, the schedule is weak. Ohio State is the only team they played that has more talent than them. The only team. The only team. And I felt like that the leaders, once again, the leadership that was coming back on this team would be strong enough to be able to win close games in the fourth quarter and hold on. I never called Notre Dame a national title contender. Never. Did I say they had a chance to make the playoff? Yes. Because the schedule is soft and they have more talent than everybody on their schedule.
We all said the same thing here too.
So I was on the same. BK left because of a lack of talent.
Mm-hmm.
BK left because the infrastructure was bad. His coaches were bad. He made bad hires, and he couldn't recruit the quarterback position. Tyler Buckner, his. Drew Pine, his. And if he doesn't get a savior in Jack Cohn, he would have been 6-6, 7-5 in his last year. I wasn't fooled. I knew exactly who they were. But even in that, they still are name the team that they've lost to that they're not better than from a talent standpoint. Name them. Name them. And you can put in, if Jeff Sims, just using Jeff Sims, if Jeff Sims comes here next year from Georgia Tech and is named the starting quarterback in Notre Dame and wins 11 games, he'll be in the Heisman race. You know why? Because it's Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think just to kind of take this full circle, Sean, I believe the conversation originally was like, hey, if Notre Dame makes title run or they make the playoff run, it's probably because Tyler Buchner was really good, right? Like that was the conversation
That was
piece.
the
And
conversation.
to your point, like they're going to be in the like if you're on a quarterback on a playoff team who's had good numbers, then you're probably in that conversation, right? Not saying you're going to win it, but like, right? I mean, makes sense. Makes sense.
No
Yeah.
one said Tyler Buchner was going to be in the Heisman conversation like it was a done deal. No. If Notre Dame is going to the playoffs, that would mean Tyler Buchner will have beaten 2 of the 3. We said this. Either he has beaten Ohio State, USC, and Clemson. He's beaten 2 of those teams. We were very clear. No one said, oh, he's going to win the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
Or being Heisman just because he's Tyler Buchner. No. If Notre Dame gets to the playoffs and win these games because they have a better talent base, then the only questionable talent gap would be what? Clemson and Ohio State?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I guess you can make USC argument at certain spots. Yeah. I mean,
No.
yeah.
Full roster, Notre Dame has better talent than USC.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that.
They do.
I don't disagree.
They just do. You know what they don't have? They don't have a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a big-time quarterback. And there's no one that knew what Tyler Buchner was going to be either way. We didn't know. We were waiting to see like everyone else. But we did know that if Notre Dame won 2 of the 3 big games, he would be in the Heisman conversation.
Mm-hmm. Point blank period to it. And I see a lot of people. What's that?
Did you expect Hendon Hooker to be in the Heisman conversation?
Production wise, what's that?
No, I'm just saying, with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young coming back.
I mean, they were the clear front runners. They were the front runners. I thought Hendon was going to put up numbers, but like, with the team success he's had, that's obviously going to help him a lot, right? Like, I didn't think that they'd be sitting undefeated, just beating Alabama in the preseason, right? Like, I didn't think that. Yeah.
You just answered my question. You said with the team success.
Oh, that matters in Heisman voting. It shouldn't always, but it matters 100%. Yeah, it does.
So, and then that can open up Pandora's box of people like, well, he has Josh Heupel. I totally agree. But like I said, let's keep everything. And like Ryan said, I didn't take this as an attack. I just wanted to make sure that my words
were not misconstrued
correctly.
Yeah. Right. Totally get it. Yep. And I don't think you were disrespectful in any way. Like I don't think Archer was disrespectful in this comment. Archer, like you're a valued member of this chat, right? Like I'm just saying that, we're just making sure we're maintaining exactly what we're saying is all.
We're not using BK as an excuse for this year's team, which goes back to what we said. Properly allocate what should be allocated to Marcus Freeman, and then understand what has been happening in this program. If you choose to turn a blind eye to what has been happening just because you were able to win games, I'm sorry. I was irritated that we beat Toledo. I don't know how you felt, Ryan.
I mean, I didn't feel good about it. This is what it is.
Dude, Toledo walked in here and had a fourth quarter lead? No, I'm not happy with that.
No.
Everybody
knew that 11-1 was such a mirage last year, man. Like, it wasn't real. Dude,
you know that Virginia Tech program was in bad shape last year.
And even worse now, too.
Even worse now.
Yep.
And we were down almost double digits in the fourth quarter to a program in shambles. Come on, we got to be real, man. We got to open our eyes to everything.
Oh, man. Now people in the chat.
And that's still going on.
Now people in the chat are saying that the defense isn't good. Guys, I look, it's super easy and hyperbolic in here, okay? It is. I understand it, all right? Notre Dame still held Ohio State to 21 points. The best performance the defense has had against Ohio State in years. But we're going to act like the defense is the problem. Look, there's some coaching issues right now, no doubt, and the offense is terrible. Like, let's call it what it is, right? We can look at those things and say, yes, the defense has been mismanaged at points, but there's still a good defense. Like, come on now. Like, let's please stop. Let's get back to the comments, though, Sean. Let's get back to it. I can't, man, it's just, we can say stuff that's real, right? Like the real stuff right now is that I have concerns over the coaching staff. I do. I have concerns there. The offense is not nearly good enough. It's not nearly good enough. Play calling isn't good enough. Quarterback isn't good enough. All those things are true. But the defense is not the issue this year, man. Like, it's not. It's not the issue. But we're acting like it stinks. All right, let's go. I'm sorry. All right, the 5 Burkhart boys. Is Adon 100% committed? Talked about this a little bit. Just wanted to kind of comment a little more on this. So I've talked to people close to Adon, including himself. Look, anytime a big program offers or calls you, you listen, right? You listen out of respect. Adon and his family are very respectful. There's no doubt. I am not worried about it. I'm not. I think I'll have a little more on this in the future at boards.irishbreakdown.com, but I do think that Adon is very committed to Notre Dame. I do. Yes, at this point. So thank you for the question, though. All right, Sean, let's go here. Hunter Land asked, do you think a part of the new culture, especially to recruiting, is having leaders in the class like Bowen on Twitter, with Twitter, and that hoodie he wore? Sean, what do you think? I guess let me take it from a different angle, and because I think this is what the question is asking. How much important do you think is the social media aspect of recruiting? Seeing guys say 100% committed, throwing the shamrocks out, rocking hoodies, doing all that type of stuff. How important is the Twitter space and social media outlet for them?
Well, if you came in late, you guys are catching up with us now. Make sure you check out the beginning of the show where we had Christian Gray's mom, Shonda Gray, on. And this ties in right with this question because she talked about the importance of social media and how she had to be connected to the coaches that were following Christian and who he was following and have communications with. So it's vitally important, not just for the kids, but it's vitally important for the parents. And I'll go a step further, right? When you talk about parents, there was a 2023 target that Notre Dame is no longer in on. Their parents were laughing at the Notre Dame score after the game on social media. So it's very important. Like, everyone's connected. So having Drake, CJ, Cam, I don't know, this little inside joke they have going from this past weekend between Drake, CJ, and Cam and other recruits, like referring to each other as sons and all of that stuff. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's funny to them. They're having a ball with it. They started with it on Saturday, and they're still going with it today. And that's the camaraderie and the family atmosphere that's being built in the 23 class and the 24 class. And social media is a part of that. It's a huge part of it. I will say this, though. There is nothing more important than texting when it comes to recruits. Yep. The text threads. That's where the relationship between Adon, Peyton, Eli Bowen, even Drake Bowen, and Christian Gray. And it used to be Keon Keeley, part of that text thread as well. So texting is probably a little bit above social media, but social media has its place. And having guys like Drake and CJ are definitely an important cog in making sure that both of those classes have success.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it matters. It 100% matters, to your point. The interaction just in general is like the over-encompassing. Like, that stuff matters. Like the camaraderie between the recruits, the commits, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Sean, Kelly just put, Sean, that I just want to respond quickly to this. I think that was Ohio State's worst game of the year, in my opinion.
I wonder why.
Sean, there's a reason that it was the worst game of the year. Did Ohio State have some self-inflicting things as part of that game? Sure. Does Notre Dame deserve credit for the performance though? Yeah, absolutely they do, man. Like, come on now. What we're gonna say? Ohio State just had an off day. That's all. It's just an off day. Notre Dame doesn't get any credit for that.
Yeah.
Come on,
it's
man.
amazing. Let's look at the dichotomy of this team, right? Every offense faces Notre Dame and has their worst output of the season. Everyone they played, all 6 teams. The offenses for these teams then go explode on everybody else. The defenses of those teams face Notre Dame, and then immediately, except for Ohio State, the other 5 teams face Notre Dame. The Notre Dame offense doesn't produce, and then the next week, they'll go give up 52 to an Arkansas team that's been struggling at home. Notre Dame only put up 28. Arkansas comes into Provo and puts up a 50 spot. And you tell me you want to nitpick with the defense? There's a reason why these things are happening and going in opposite directions on opposite sides of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we could talk about Cam Hart struggling. We can talk about Clarence Lewis has been better than last year.
Yes.
Right? If Jaden Mickey doesn't make 2 monumental mistakes on 2 plays, most people would say, yo, Jaden Mickey's had a really good year for a freshman. Benjamin Morrison, really good year for a freshman. Tarek Gracie has been a stud. You see, if you had any thought who the most important player on the Notre Dame defense was, you saw it on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
From a schematic standpoint and just making plays, Tarek Gracie is huge.
Yep.
To that defense.
Sure is.
So,
yep. I mean, I had a thought that I wanted to say, Sean, but I completely forget, man. My mind is getting scrambled in this chat.
I know you were going to talk about the Ohio State offense.
Man, I mean, look, man, it's never one-sided, right? Did Ohio State have a little bit of an off day? Sure. Were there some self-inflicted things? Sure. But we don't give them any credit for holding Ohio State to 21 points and having one of their worst yard outputs in years. Like, we don't give them any credit for that. You don't give Notre Dame any credit for that. Like, has Notre Dame's defense been perfect this year? No. Have they been good enough to win every football game? Yes, they certainly have. Defense for Notre Dame is not the problem. And it hasn't been for a bit, if we're being honest. Like, even thinking back to like the 2018 game against Clemson, Sean, defense ran out of steam, man, because eventually they're going to make some plays and your offense couldn't do anything that day. Couldn't do anything. Can
you imagine? Let's give context, right? Let's take the Stanford game, right?
Yep.
Let's take it. If Notre Dame comes out, does what it's supposed to do, puts Audric Estime in the backfield and runs power, throws some crossing routes, actually comes in with effective things that would go against that Stanford defense that was putting 8-9 in the box. Taking shots down the field with its best players, like 15. Because you saw they had Braden Lindsey wide open on the post early, missed him. Lorenzo got behind the defender. The defender held his right arm, and he was forced to try and make a catch with one hand. Opportunity was there. If the offense does anything and causes Stanford to have to move away from his game plan at all, that's when you see the porous offensive line get exposed by Stanford. Because now the defensive line can come after Tanner McKee. But the offense not doing its job never afforded the defense the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't. You saw how the game changed when they made Jaren Hall play from behind. Make the BYU offense played from behind. And look what happened. Ryan Day spent 3 quarters, Ryan, banging his head against the wall. You know why? Because his arrogant self wanted to prove that his quarterback and his wide receivers could be better than the Notre Dame defense.
Yep.
And when push came to shove, what was he forced to do to be successful? Run the ball.
Yep. And I see a bunch of comments in the chat. I just want to hit on a couple points. I blocked the LSU fan that came in here for one. Look, guys, is Marcus Freeman the guy? I don't know. You know who I know isn't the guy, though, and won't be the guy in Louisiana? It's Brian Kelly. So who cares? Let them live in their 5-2 fantasy world. Have fun with that, guys. And I see a lot of talk about Michigan right now, too. So just want to say that we should chill on the Michigan talk, because right now Michigan is a good football team and they're winning football games, right? And Michigan is a better team than Notre Dame right now. So can we just leave Michigan alone? Especially we're not going to attack Antoine in the chat, because Antoine is good people and he is a very respectful member of this chat. So can we please chill on the Michigan talk?
Twan, I'm happy for your squad. It's about time.
Yep.
Because Harbaugh has been underwhelming, and even you know that since his time there. So I'm happy for him.
Yep. I just don't want to start throwing people out of the chat, because, again, Antoine is respected in our community. We're going to leave it that way. If not, people will get pushed out. So, yeah. Antoine, good. Congrats on Michigan's start, man. Look good. They look good. All right, so let's go to next question. Like this one, Sean. I'm going to bring this one to you. Do you think you could use Adon as a wildcat in short yardage red zone at Notre Dame? Back to some positivity for a second. For people that didn't listen to the first part of this show, or the second segment of the show, Adon had 10 carries for 239 yards this past week.
Look, man, Adon Schuler and wildcat in short yardage, specifically inside the 10, is a far better option than a jet sweep to Jaden Thomas or a screen pass to Michael Mayer. I just want to point out, in 2 consecutive weeks, what was drawn up in that position on the field. Absolutely. I would take, you know what? I'm sure Logan Diggs can run wildcat on the goal line. Heck, I'm sure Chris Tyree can run wildcat on the goal line. Irishman, you might have just given the coaching staff an idea in the red zone. Thank you for coming up with that. Thank you. Because I'm sure there are players a little bit more shifty than our stiff, big guy at the wide receiver room running a jet sweep from the 2-yard line. Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
He can run some wildcat. Micah Bell can run some wildcat. Peyton Bowen can run some wildcat. There's a lot of guys who can run a little wildcat in this. Shane Greathouse could probably be a wildcat quarterback if he felt like he can do everything else that he wants. So, Salty said, Sean, as Shonda said, it's quite possible that an offensive coordinator coach will not be there for the next 4 years. Christian has had a new position, head coach, every year. Does it matter? Right. So, I just want to pull this up because Salty, I think it's good perspective, right? We heard it directly from a parent. It's not only about who the coach is. It's about the program. It's about the faith. It's about a lot of other factors. So just wanted to pull that one up because I think it was a good comment. And if you didn't hear the Shonda Gray interview, you should go back to the beginning of the show because it was a great conversation. A lot of positivity. Unlike the chat right now. A lot of positivity. All right, we're going to go to Captain Dipstick. Next season, Charles Jagasaw. Love the name. Next season, Charles Jagasaw and Rocco Spindler / Billy Shrouth at the right side, Alt Fisher on the left. Best young offensive line. Oh, so in his world, Sean, he's saying that we're moving Blake Fisher to left guard. It's happening here, I'm assuming. And Joe Alt's going to left tackle, and he's got it Rocco Shrouth on the right side with Charles Jagasaw at right tackle, I guess, in his world.
That's not happening. Now, if you want to move Fisher inside, and I think That's what he's alluding to.
Yeah.
I think the bigger possibility would be Emil Wagner at right tackle with Blake Fisher inside, because Harry Heastand is not starting Charles Jagasaw from day one.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not what Harry Heastand does.
Yeah.
He
It's
doesn't believe in
very
that.
rare that happens just in general at Notre Dame. I mean, we've talked about it, right? Like Robert Hainsey was a part-time platooner at right tackle his freshman year.
Right.
Ryan Harris was a guy that started as a true freshman at Notre Dame many moons ago, and Blake Fisher started a game, but that was also not under Harry Heastand. Neither was Ryan Harris. So that doesn't happen too often, right? To your point, Sean. So, and technically, Robert Hainsey didn't start that game. He was rotating in, but it was Tommy Kramer that started at right tackle for that team for half of the starts that year. So, yes, to your points. And I think Charles Jagasaw, I think, could be in the conversation of the guard battle next year, but I don't think the right tackle battle. Now, future-wise, Charles will have every opportunity to play tackle at Notre Dame, but I don't think initially in 2023 he'll have that opportunity.
Yeah.
All right, going back to Archer. Archer said, Shryan, where do you think the 2023 class finishes in the composite ranking, both points and ranking? Points, Archer, I'd have to do a little bit of math for it, just kind of look. But ranking-wise, Sean, I still think they're a clear top 5 class as long as they maintain everyone. And I thought that there's still a couple guys that are still going to kind of trickle in. So I still think they have the potential of being a top 3 to 4 class, but I think top 5 is still very, very much on the table, personally.
For me, it all comes down to what they're able to do at the quarterback position.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
If they get Flip, an Avery Johnson or a Jackson Arnold or somebody like that, or even like a Kenny Minchie, they're top 3, in my opinion, with the talent they have at the skill positions. And maybe if they can bring in somebody else, the Mpemba thing is pretty, in my opinion, I think he's going to Georgia, but, he'll be in town November 5th. So they'll have an opportunity to show him what they have. But, if they flip a really good quarterback and, maybe add another piece or two to the class, top 5 is locked up. Yeah, I think top 5 is locked up because I do anticipate getting a quarterback in a class.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. If they didn't get a top 5 class, I would be very, very surprised, to your point. Yeah. From Demetrius Rex, Super Chat. Demetrius, appreciate you. Can we depend on freshman wide receivers getting PT next year, Sean? Of course, it's because of the Tobias Merriweather thing, right? He only played a couple snaps, had a 41-yard touchdown, hasn't played a ton. Can we depend on Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores to come in and Braylon James and compete for reps early on, Sean?
This goes back to what we talked about last week, right? I think 2 of those 3 guys are early enrollees. So as early enrollees, they will have a better
I believe all 3 of them are enrolling early, if I remember correctly.
They'll have a better shot than Tobias to get on the field early.
That's a good point because people don't talk about that enough, right? Should Tobias Merriweather be playing more? Yes. I think we saw that on Saturday, right? Should he have been playing more since the beginning of the season? Yes. I think we saw that on Saturday, right?
Right.
But he didn't get here until the fall or until the summer, I should say, until summer workouts and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I do believe that Tobias would have a much heavier opportunity to play early because what we know for a fact is that there are a couple defensive backs in Notre Dame right now that are true freshmen that are playing a lot of football, right? I know that's on the defensive side of the ball versus the offensive side of the ball, but we also know that Jadarian Price was going to play a lot if he did not get injured. He was going to play a lot, and that's on the offensive side of the football. I think if Tobias came in the spring, then he would have had an opportunity to play a lot more. But, I mean, either way, Demetrius, I think that they still think that they're going to have a chance to. Should we – look, it has to happen, right? It has to happen for actuality for us to believe it at this point. But I do think that there is a little bit of context to what Sean's saying as far as hey, if Tobias enrolled early, maybe it'd be a little different. But to your point, there's going to be skepticism until it happens, Demetrius. So thank you for the super chat, though.
And doesn't it, if I'm not mistaken, you take the spring to really see what you have, which is why younger players have an opportunity to really make an impression during the spring if they come in early. right? And their first impression is the work they put in with Matt Balis, because Matt Balis is going back and talking to the staff like, yo, this kid is working his tail off.
Yep.
Like, this kid is working his tail off. And then you go into the spring, you make a further impression. When you get to, look, you can say what you want to. Marcus Freeman said all the coach talk. Fall camp was all about Ohio State. They can say what they want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they did was built around getting ready for Ohio State. And when you get to that point, I don't know how many opportunities you really have, Ryan, as a freshman just coming on the field, trying to learn everything to really pop and make that impression like you would during the spring coming out of strength training. So it's difficult. It can be done.
Yeah.
And he definitely.
I mean, Benjamin Morrison did it, right?
Yeah.
To your point. Yeah. I mean, he didn't start in the first couple games, but he's slowly gotten that starting role, right? Yeah. I mean, I will say this. I think there's a clear balance to it, right? It's like, should he be playing more? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it understandable to a degree? Yes.
Yeah.
But I would also say that, to Demetrius's point, right, Benjamin Morrison eventually got that opportunity a lot earlier than Tobias has gotten that opportunity. So there's definitely an offense versus defense thing, but just over encompassing, I think there's layers to the conversation. I think, like, I don't think it's just one note, but yes, Tobias Merriweather should be playing more. Like, there's no doubt. Like, no one.
In your opinion,
in my opinion, oh yes, in my opinion, he should be playing
more. No. In your opinion, if they get, and I'm forecasting, does the quarterback change how the wide receivers are used? Like, because I mean, if they get a big time transfer in at quarterback that has a big arm, maybe, I mean, it's a lot that goes into it. So when you ask that question as of today, yeah, we understand. But there are a lot of things that can move, a lot of moving parts that could happen that could like change a lot.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, it's something where, I mean, and this is in theory, right? Good coaches change with what they have, right? So, I mean, if you have a lot of vertically oriented wide receivers, want to run a lot of vertically oriented routes, right? Like that makes sense for guys that, and this is my frustration with what we saw this past week is that, I mean, again, I said it on the postgame show. I felt like Notre Dame's offensive game plan was centered around Stanford's offensive players. Like, that's what it seemed like to me, man. It was like, you don't have speed. I'm just like, people have this like preconceived notion that Notre Dame doesn't have speed. And I just think it's how they're used that makes it look like they don't have speed. I don't think it's actuality of what they have as talent. So it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. But Demetrius, again, appreciate you so much for the super chat. Also appreciate Larry Friedel, who threw in, will more recruits leave if Tommy Rees leaves or if Tommy Rees stays, Sean? That's an interesting one. I don't really want to speculate on it too much. Just an interesting thing to think about, whether a coaching change offensively will cause players to leave the class or cause people to rethink. I think it's a nuanced conversation, one that I'm not ready to have because it's not a reality. If this becomes a reality, then we'll have the conversation, Larry. But I just wanted to bring your question up because it is an interesting thing to think about for people out there. Rob Titoff said, Ryan and Sean, in your opinion, what did you miscalculate the most about the 2022 Notre Dame program? This one's an interesting, Sean. What is the biggest? I mean, my miscalculation, I would say, is I thought that what we saw at Oklahoma State as far as the creativity of Notre Dame's offense was going to be more what we saw in 2022. That is not what we have seen so far. Right. And I think that there is definitely like Tyler Buckner getting hurt. And there's like a couple things that wide receivers not playing consistent football. Like there's some things that are holding the offense back from a player perspective right now. Right. But I also think that there's a lot of that the coach is holding back right now too. Right. So I think that for me, I thought the offense was going to be a little more creative. Like I thought it was. That was my big miscalculations. I thought it was just going to be a little. I thought it was going to be a little more explosive and a little more creative offensively.
And to that, I'll say this. It might have been unfair to have that, right? Young OC, his previous experience was under his mentor. And the truth be told, we know for a fact that the mentor would take the reins during games. down on the field when he saw certain things, or would suggest this is what we need to go to on this next series, or this is what we need to do. So this is his first time having total autonomy, and it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle, to say the least. My biggest miscalculation was the leaders. Jared Patterson, Isaiah Foskey, all the guys that came back and the impact I thought they would have, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, there's no juice with them right now, man.
No way through 6 games I would think Isaiah Foskey would have been this average in his play. And Jared Patterson would make so many bonehead mistakes as a 5th-year captain.
Sean, I would have honestly thought that Isaiah Foskey hadn't played on Saturday if I was just like not looking out for him, Like it was just very frustrating.
Yeah.
That's a good one, man. I think the leadership has not been what it needs to be from a team perspective as well. Like to your point, I talked about this in the preseason. I talked about it in the season so far as well. I'm not sure what players because hey, Bo Bauer brought some juice, right? Like he brings that juice. Michael Mayer brings the juice in his own way, but there's not like consistent guys across the roster right now where I'm like, that's the dude, right? Like that's the tone setter. That's the guy. All of them have qualities of it. Like Jason Adamalola has a lot of good to that conversation, but I don't see a guy right now where I'm just like, man, that's the guy, right? Like that's the dude. That's like when a big play matters, he's making it. Aside from Michael Mayer, like I don't see that guy. Like I just don't. Right?
You can throw Brandon Joseph in there.
Even he's been quiet though. He's been quiet. It's just
Ryan, look. This is not Space Jam, man, where you say, yo, who stole the superpowers of all of these NBA guys? Like there's no alien team that came down, and all of a sudden stole the gifts and talents of an Isaiah Foskey or, any other great player of Notre Dame. It's like, what's causing you guys to play? What has changed? What are you being asked? Like, what's different? That would be my question. Like, if I'm standing in front of those guys right now, like, what's different? Because you guys have to be like NFL guys still watch his tape and see what they loved. So where's the production? Where is it? Like you flash it every now and then I have to ask the question, Ryan. I know people don't want to hear it. Have you gone into survivor mode where there's no chance at a national championship, no chance at a college football playoff? Now you just trying to stay healthy?
I don't want to speculate on it because I don't know.
Hey,
but
I didn't want you to say it, but I'll say it.
Yeah.
Because I don't see the juice and the effort. Like when you start telling me you don't see the juice and the effort, it's like, wait a minute. Sean,
it was such a weird occurrence too, because I'm not trying to just poop all over Isaiah Foskey. I'm not. But they were down Walter Rouse in the game. They moved Miles Hinton from right tackle to left tackle in his absence, and you had a backup right tackle in the game, and your defensive edge pressure was just invisible, man. Like it just wasn't there. It was weird. It was weird. And you had a couple of defensive linemen that I thought stepped up to a degree, right? Like I thought Chris Smith played a pretty good game. I thought Riley Mills had a really good game, actually. Like I thought he had a nice game. Gabriel Rubio had a couple flash plays. But Foskey, who's that?
Gabriel Rubio battle. He won some, he lost some.
And Nana played a solid game at defensive end. Like he did. Yeah. It was just your impact players did not make impact on Saturday, man. Like that just comes down to it. Like that's what we saw. And defensively, especially, like Jason Adamalola gets injured. So like I'll throw him out of this conversation, right? Like that's unfortunate. Like nothing we can do about that, right? Foskey didn't make a play. Brendan Joseph didn't make a play. Cam Hart didn't make a play. Like that's just the point blank period to it. And again, was it good enough to win? Yeah, they only got 16 points, but like still. It still wasn't the best performance. Like the guy still didn't come to play, man. It just didn't. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Oh man, we're going back to Saturday night, Sean. It's 2:00 in the morning. We're still talking about this right now, man. Ugh, yuck. I need to move past it, but yeah, it was. It wasn't great. Throwing this over to DRPPXY_boy_cam23. There you go. That's the screen name. Do you think Dylan Edwards will be Chris Tyree 2.0? No, I think that he will be what people maybe thought that. I want to make a good comp here. I don't want to force a comp. He's what maybe people thought CJ Sanders could have been. Maybe. Is that not bad? Like, I don't know. CJ Sanders was kind of like that dynamic slot return man that could do a little bit of things, right? That's more Dylan Sanders' role. He's not a true running back, so he's not going to be Chris Tyree. He's going to be more moving chess piece slot receiver, also return punts, kicks types of guy, right? Like, that's what I see with Dylan.
I said this and I almost got hit upside the head if it could be done through the computer by my guy. My vision is to have him be used more. Once again, the operative word is used. Used, I would love to see him used in the form of a Percy Harvin. Yeah, I would give him some snaps out the backfield.
Percy Harvin's a good one. That's a good one.
I would give him some snaps out the backfield. I would give him some wildcat. I would slot, jet sweeps, reverses. Like, yo, whatever. Get the ball in his hands. Special teams, everything. Get the ball in his hands.
Yep.
That's it. He has no position. Just get the ball in his hands. Line him up wherever and get the ball to him.
Yep. You can use them in so many different ways, man. Jet sweeps, in some running game in the backfield. You can use them as a RPO player, screen game. You can do a lot of things with Dylan Edwards. Excited that he's in the class.
I love to go to what you said. Mm-hmm. It makes me jealous is thinking about Percy Harvin and watching the Alabama game. Alabama can the game is so simple, Ryan. Like, it's 3rd and 2. Alabama can line up tight, have all the linebackers inside, and just throw a swing pass to Gibbs. Here, just outrun everybody. They can't stop you. Just outrun everybody to the sticks. And it's like, when you get that type of explosion from players, just simplify the game. Just here, go make a play. Mm-hmm. Because you can.
Agree. Going to go to D-Rock Irish. D-Rock, what up? Question, is that Notre Dame UNLV game only on Peacock this weekend? So I want to answer this one real quick. Yes, this is the Peacock game this year, sir. So get your Peacock while you can.
What a way to go on that, though. I think Peacock is going to be upset about the viewership on that game.
I know, man. They should have fought harder for a different game than that one. But that's Yep. Especially a 3-3 Notre Dame team playing UNLV. Like, ooh, man. All right. Next question from Demetrius Rex again. Sean and Brian, do you feel like the defensive line has regressed from last year? They feel like a non-factor against bad offensive lines. I think certain players have regressed. Sure. I mean, because I think it's a mix, right? Yeah. I think that Isaiah Foskey has not played as well as we would have anticipated. Jason Adamola has been a little up and down, but there's been spouts of good from Jason. There has. Howard Cross, I think, took a huge step forward this year. I think that he's been very good. Riley Mills, I think, has taken a step forward. So, Demetrius, I think there's parts of it that have been good. I think there's parts of it that have stepped up. But to your regression question, I think there's a couple players that you expected more of that have regressed slightly. Like, that's what I think it is. Parts of it is yes, parts of it is no for me.
I agree with you totally. You hit the nail on the head. But you have seen guys like Gabriel Rubio get opportunity. Gabriel Rubio made some really good plays early in the North Carolina game. He struggled against BYU a little bit. They battled this last game against Stanford. You see Riley Mills continue to get better, right? Whether they play him inside or outside. Nana, with more reps, is getting better. Like early in the season, you were like, oh, no. But this last 2 games, Nana made the big play on the 3rd down. That last series to stop BYU, and that allowed Jason Adamiola to come and make the 4th down stop. So Nana's starting to make plays, and that's what you're seeing, right? And at this point, with what we're talking about, Ryan, when we have felt underwhelmed by those top guys, looking towards the program being built, Riley Mills, Nana, and all those younger guys that'll be here next year. And, the guys coming after them, you like seeing their success and their growth. So that's something to continue to look for in upcoming games.
Absolutely. Only got 2 more left here. Great questions. We had a super chat come in, Sean, from Ty Fallon, who said, do you think the Stanford team looked at the game more as a rivalry than Notre Dame did? That's interesting. I mean, yes, maybe. I mean, Sean, because you got to think, man, for Stanford, going to Notre Dame and beating Notre Dame is a massive thing, right? That was a big boost to their program. They hadn't beaten a Power 5 team in a year and a half, right? Over a year. Yeah. So, yeah, I have to think that was a big opportunity for them. And I think that they definitely came in with a lot more juice in this football game than Notre Dame did. So I think I agree, TJ. Yeah, I think I agree.
As much as we talked about David Shaw, whether or not he would be on the hot seat, because we fully expected that Notre Dame would kind of thrash Stanford, you have to give kudos to him and his coaching staff coming off of that just dramatic and gut-wrenching loss that they had at home, where they had a game won, they allowed it to slip away late, they threw their game away, and they came in and competed. But I will say this, it was funny rewatching the game. David Shaw had a smirk on his face and laughed multiple times all game. It was literally like they knew exactly the predictability of the offense and defense in Notre Dame. And they said to themselves, if we don't make mistakes and give them the ball, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be successful with it, and we can win this game. And they did exactly that. They did exactly that. And the fact that they could walk in with a vanilla game plan on both sides of the ball and be successful is an even bigger issue when you're talking about a coordinator, from the coordinator's point of view. That's a huge issue. And it goes back to the scan offense. What are we scanning? We got a run play and a pass play from this formation. If you see this, we're checking to this. You don't have to look to the sideline. This is the play. If there's 8 in the box, we're going to throw it outside. Yep. There's 7 in the box, we're going to run it. But it seemed like every time, whatever they checked to, Stanford would communicate. Man, anytime you have a DB chase down Braden Lindsay from behind with a running start, it's like, okay, something's wrong. Something's we're tipping, showing our hand from a formational standpoint. There's something that's alerting the opposition to what's coming. You got to be better.
Yep. Well said, sir. Well said. TJ, again, appreciate the question. Sean, we had this one. Josh P said he's had some elite questions that have gone unanswered. So here you go, Josh. Here's one for you, buddy. Appreciate you. Of the offensive line holes in the last 2 years, 2022, which was Shrouth, no more Joni Tenona, unfortunately, Emil Wagner, Ty Chan, and Ashton Craig, and 2023, which as of right now is Charles Jagasaw, Sullivan Absher, Sam Pendleton, and Joe Otting. Sean, he wants us to make a starting 5 out of these 2 classes. Ooh, let's go left to right here, okay? Let's talk this out. Who's your left tackle of that group? It's got to be Emil, right? Got to be.
Wait a minute. So we're putting the starting offensive line together.
Starting 5.
The starting 5?
Yeah.
My left tackle, you know what? Depending upon, because I'm telling you, man, I saw this dude fold a couple of, he's not even at his full weight yet. And I saw him fold some defensive linemen that get reps, consistent rep in practice. So you could go Wagner, and then you could go Wagner, Schroff. Zeke probably stays at center.
No, they just out of the 2022 and 2023 class, Sean. So you got to put your center. Okay. Yeah.
My bad. That is definitely Emil Wagner.
Yes.
Definitely Wagner. I
Yep.
tell you who's intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Tai Chan he's a big kid.
He's a big kid, man. He's a big kid.
He's
I saw him in person. I was like, oh, he looks like a junior in college.
Yeah, he's a big kid. So I'm very interested in his development and how he comes along. So I would say, Ralph, your guy. I'm very intrigued by Sam Pendleton.
Oh, you like Sam? Yeah.
I am.
Big boy. He's a big boy, man.
What you just said, he's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
Yep.
So, like, you put him on the interior. Yeah. Yeah. And then, I have to throw my boy Jagasaw in there just because that's my guy. That's my guy. So I'm going Wagner.
Uh-huh.
Wagner, Shroff, Pendleton, Jagasaw. That's 4, right?
Yep. So you need another interior guy, whether you're a center or guard, depending on how you're moving this around. You want me to do mine real quick, and then I'll let you give time to ponder? Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead. I have to think about this last one. Go ahead.
Left tackle is Emil Wagner. Easy money. Easy money out of this.
Yeah.
Left guard. It's actually going to be Selvin Absher. That's going to be my left guard. Center is going to be Billy Schroff. Putting Schroff at center.
Oh, center. Okay.
Right guard, Tai Chan. Right tackle, Charles Jagasaw.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Yeah. I like that. I didn't even think about Schroff the center. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's in the cards for him, but like,
when's the last time we had a big body at center?
I think Jared Patterson is a pretty big body.
But it's been what?
Before that,
injured mostly. Before that, it was Mustafa for a long time.
Mustafa's not a big kid. He's a little bit smaller. Trying to think, man. Braxton Cave was a pretty big kid.
Yeah, he was
pretty big.
Yeah, he was.
Big guy.
Good question, Josh P.
Yeah, no, it was a great question.
Really
it was a great question.
Yeah, really good question.
Yep. So, all right. So then we're going to move to the last question of the day, which is again from Grady Carson. Sorry if this has been asked already. It hasn't. How many of the 2023 commits are planning on enrolling early? So, Sean, we did this a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. So let's roll through this quick. Yeah. Running backs, Jeremiyah Love is planning to enroll early. Know this. Jaden Lamar is planning to enroll early, to my knowledge. Wide receivers, we already talked about it. Believe Rico, Jaden Greathouse, and Braylon James are all planning to enroll early. Not sure about Dylan Edwards. Not sure. I'm also not sure 100% about Cooper Flanagan. I'll get back to you on that one. Not sure. Offensive line-wise, I believe Pendleton, Absher are yeses. I believe you told me before that Jagasaw is a yes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Otting is up in the air. I'm not 100% sure about that one. I'll check in with his mom, though, and get you guys some insight into that one. Defensive line-wise, Brandon Vernon cannot with the mentor rules, unfortunately. Boubacar Traore, I'm not sure about. Devin Houston, I'm not sure about. So defensive line-wise, not 100% on that department. Linebacker-wise, I believe Osbury is. Drake Bowen was a yes, I think, right? Or no? Do you remember?
Who was that again?
Drake.
Oh, yeah, Drake. Wait a minute. Drake would enroll.
I just talked to Drake yesterday. Yeah, I'm an idiot. Yeah. No,
Drake would enroll today.
Yeah.
If his high school season was done.
Yeah, I know. I actually was literally just texting him. He's like, I can't wait to get there in January. I'm an idiot. Yeah, he's enrolling early.
I'll tell you, he is locked. Like he's already. No, this is how locked in he is. When was it? He was there for a visit over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was for the first game. It was at Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him on the phone. And no, I'm sorry. Guys, I messed this up. Drake Bowen was there for the blue and gold game. And I'm talking to him on the phone, like while he's there that Sunday. Everyone else had gone home. He was still on campus. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm watching the Notre Dame basketball game. I think it was like one of the tournament games. And I'm like, oh, he was watching the baseball game. It was something he was watching as far as Notre Dame sports. And I'm like, why are you still on campus? And he's like, oh, I'm here working out. I had Coach Bayless give me a workout regimen that I'm going to be going over to get me ready for January. This is how locked in this kid is. Like, he's telling me I'm in the workout center. Coach Bayless gave me, kind of like an outline for a workout, and I'm working out to get ready for January. This is back in like the spring. Like, this kid is like, he's like on another level, Ryan. Like, his readiness, and his high school team is kind of on a roll now. So he's going for that back-to-back double. He's already won back-to-back baseball championships. Now he's looking for the back-to-back football state championships to end his high school career. They started out 0-2. Now they're on the roll with him and Pat Clax. And it's soon, man, I can't even properly convey how ready he is to be a student at Notre Dame.
I love it, man. I love it. I can't spend enough time talking good things about Drake Bowen, man. Like, I can't do it. Preston Zinter, not 100% sure about. Micah Bell, yes. Christian Gray, yes. Adon Schuler, yes. First player to ever graduate early from Irvington. And I believe Peyton Bowen is a yes as well. So large portion of this class, Sean, right now, the 23 commits are early enrollees, man. Like, I would say it's about 80-something% of them are going to be enrolled early without doing the easy math here. So great question, though. Grady, appreciate you again. Thank you all so much. So that's going to end it for the mailbag of the day, Sean. I appreciate everyone out there. Before you leave, do not leave yet. Do not leave yet. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this podcast. Tell your friends. Tell your friends if you think we're cool. That'd be great. 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. You can go to Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. They all do ratings at this point. This is the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. I am Ryan Roberts. This is Sean Davis. Want to thank you all so much. 6 o'clock tonight will be IB Nation Sports Talk, where Sean Stiers and Vince Dario will take you a little bit more of an absolute scope of Notre Dame football. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll be doing Upon Further Review as well tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you all for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast.